Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1349 of the War News stream. And today we have very big news. We've seen Russia deploying weapon shipments to Venezuela actively today. We've also seen that Belgium's closed their airspace over unknown drone sightings around multiple different airports. And also, Putin has approved full-time military conscription because they're running out of soldiers. And we have very big news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 48 hours of news from around the world as major and significant developments have happened not only inside the Eastern Caribbean, but also in Eastern Europe as well. We have been able to hear significant news today that the Russian Federation's government, by official announcement, has been providing the Republic of Venezuela and the Maduro regime with weapons of mass destruction, or more so, weapons of any kind, including the possibility of weapons of mass destruction such as the Oreshnik intercontinental ballistic missile. Already provided is the Pantsir S-1 and Buk M2 by public Russian announcement, along with other additional Russian statements following along the lines that other weapons have been provided that the Russians and the Venezuelans are not disclosing at this point, largely turning the situation from one of a more so domestic affair, or at least it would more so seem one at the surface of it, and now it's becoming an international affair between the United States and the Russian Federation, and generally another proxy armed showdown between the two sides. The United States of America is attempting to race the Gerald R. Ford out of the Mediterranean at this moment. It was spotted in the Strait of Gibraltar earlier today and is currently somewhere within the eastern North Atlantic, making all available steam towards the area of the Eastern Caribbean. In the meantime, Maduro's regime has openly praised the Russian Federation for their arms provisions and has stated that the Russian Federation is a strong, true, and trusted ally, one that the Venezuelans can count on in their time of need. At the same time, the United States of America is making sure that that time of need is going to be coming around a lot quicker, as U.S. forces, possibly the 22nd MU, were were spotted today in Trinidad and Tobago moving along the highways. The United States government is also racing to oust the Maduro regime as quickly as possible, even looking to conduct a strike without congressional approval and then seek approval at a later date at this point, considering that now Russian arms provisions are starting to put a ticking timer on this development at the moment. In the meantime, the United States of America is seeing that the Russian Federation is having a very difficult situation on the home front, even when they're trying to make the situation in the Eastern Caribbean difficult for the United States. The Russian Federation is now dealing with such a significant loss of manpower and a manpower shortage as a whole in the armed forces that the Russian Federation, by presidential decree today, has now moved away from the usual spring and fall conscription regiments and is now moving to an all-year-round conscription routine. This will be allowing the Russian Federation to conscript forces whenever necessary and whenever needed, pretty much accounting for the absolute losses seen in the front lines in Ukraine, and to be able to ensure that the Russian Federation's armed forces are now going to be dealing with a critical or crippling manpower shortage at any point in the future. Still, this is showing that the situation is absolutely dire for the Russian Federation, not only on an economic and strategic level, but even on the tactical level. The manpower situation is looking quite bad. The Ukrainian armed forces have also been creating an even worsening economic situation, even more so still than we've already seen inside the Russian Federation, with attacks on the Nizhny Novgorod refinery once again occurring overnight, along with attacks on the Sterlitamak petrochemical plant, which was also hit overnight and heavily damaged as well. Air defense has been active over the city of Oriol, while more major Ukrainian drone attacks are once again underway at this moment, and the Ukrainian armed forces have continued to hold their line and inflict unsurmountable losses onto the Russian Federation's armed forces near to the city of Pokrovsk. Russian armed forces were able to make it into the very southern outskirts of the city of Pokrovsk, around the small village of Leontovichi, which is a suburb of Pokrovsk, last night, and heavy battle is now ensuing in this area. Ukrainian armed forces have stated that they are holding the advantage, and the counterattack appears to be possibly pushing the Russians out of this small suburb. In the meantime, the Russian Federation has also seen that they have lost an anti-submarine patrol vessel inside of the port of Sevastopol due to a mysterious fire that broke out on board the vessel and has burned wildly out of control since then. 2 Russian spies were arrested inside of Poland today by Polish internal security forces and have been apparently conducting counterintelligence and intelligence operations in support of the FSB of the Russian Federation. These individuals are to be tried on December 8th and will most likely be found guilty for their crimes. In the meantime, Lithuania has also opened up a new Rheinmettal ammunition plant inside of their country to help them to supply vital munitions not only to their Boxer infantry fighting vehicles, but also to their upcoming Leopard 2 A7 main battle tanks, which the Lithuanians are currently attempting to procure and field inside of their armed forces. The Belgians have also given authorization to their armed forces to shoot down any drones within Belgian airspace that have not been identified or have been given proper approval to fly through the airspace by the civil authorities. In the meantime, just hours ago, we were able to hear that the entire national airspace was closed after such drones were spotted again. We have absolutely major news to cover over the course of the night. Once again, largely within the Eastern Caribbean and East Russia, or more so Eastern Europe. And we are going to be making sure to get into each and every single major piece and detail of news that we have gotten over the past 48 hours, in the largest stories, of course, coming first, and going into the smaller stories throughout the course of the night. And so, folks, without further ado, let us get into the largest story of the day, which is going to be taking us directly into the Eastern Caribbean and into Venezuela. We were able to hear earlier in the morning that the Maduro regime, or specifically Nicolas Maduro himself, was openly praising the Russian Federation, saying that Russia has set an example of respecting international law and stands as a global power capable of building partnerships based on equality, mutual respect, and cooperation. These statements seem to be not so shocking to many people who already know about the geopolitical position that Venezuela is situated in at the moment, but these statements do come as a shock to some people who do view the Russian Federation as a somewhat benevolent country, or at least a friendly country to the United States of America, or the very few people who are fewer and fewer each and every day who generally believe those sorts of assessments. The Russian Federation has openly stated today, these are the reasons why Maduro has made such friendly statements about the Russians, he's got a good reason why, as the Russians publicly stated that they are now supplying weapons to Venezuela, in quite large amounts, mind you. And let me share with you all the large amounts that we already know of right now, according to current Russian statements. According to the Russian Alexei Zuryalov, who is the first deputy chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee, he has stated that they have already delivered Pantsir S-1 and Buk M2 missile systems to Venezuela. The Pantsir S-1 is a fairly short-range air defense system. This air defense system only has a range of around 15 to 20 miles, and its performance in Ukraine has been very sketchy. A large amount of Pantsir S-1s seem to not be able to detect incoming air targets. Either the radar is not strong enough or fine-tuned enough to be able to pick up these incoming air targets, and this system has found itself easily destroyed by FPV drones of the Ukrainian armed forces. For this reason, most Pantsir S-1s that are remaining inside of the Russian Federation have generally been relegated to point defenses, usually around the Kerch Bridge, Moscow, or one of Putin's dachas. We rarely ever see a Pantsir S-1 inside of Ukraine anymore, and very rarely do we ever see one outside of the Crimean Bridge, Putin's dachas, or Moscow. We've seen one or two of them around the Volgograd area and elsewhere, but that is, once again, exceedingly rare and in very limited number. These systems, for that reason, are not the most dangerous air defense system to see on the planet and could be easily dealt with. However, there is another air defense system that the Russians also announced that they are providing, which is the Buk M2. This is the Buk M2 right here, in the entire air defense system that follows along with the Buk M2. The Buk M2s generally have a targeting acquisition vehicle and several launcher vehicles that follow along with it. This is a fairly decent air defense system, all things considered, at least for Venezuela. Considering that Venezuela's strongest air defense system is the Chinese-provided HQ-9B, this is probably the second best air defense system that they have in the country at the moment, and it was just provided to them by the Russians within the last week. This air defense system, once again, does not have an extremely long range. It's only a range of about 30 or so miles. Not that far, at least in modern air defense metrics. In modern air defense metrics, an air defense range for a large caliber air defense system is usually expected to be around 100 to 110 miles, and that would generally be considered to be a great air defense system, or at least a very decent one. The Buk M2s don't really get that kind of range. You can see right here, as a matter of fact, the 9M38s, which are the older sorts of missiles that the Buk M1 and the Buk M2s use, is a 19-mile range. It's not that far. Still, these do allow for the Venezuelans to have at least a larger amount of available air defense systems operational, and also a larger amount of interceptors that are available to be fired at any given moment. Of course, that also relies on the Venezuelans being properly trained to be able to operate these systems, but if we were to assume that they were properly trained, which we generally would for analytical purposes, this is allowing the Venezuelans to stay in the fight a little bit longer if the United States decides to strike. But that's not where the Russian Federation left off. There's a lot of additional statements that they made today that were a lot more concerning than the fact that they provided some shorter range air defense systems. According to what we were able to hear from Alexei Zuryalov, he stated that Russia is already supplying weapons to Venezuela and sees no obstacles to transferring the brand new Oreshnik ICBM, pictured here, to the Republic of Venezuela. Now that's where...
Also, by the way, just a small point. Isn't the Oreshnik an IRBM though? But why are they calling it an ICBM? Because I thought it was different.
It's actually kind of a ICBM, but not really, because it just breaches the threshold of being an ICBM, I think by like 25 miles. So it really is more so of an IRBM, but it's in the twilight zone between being an ICBM and an IRBM. So you can really use both of them interchangeably, and they pretty much work either way. It's really like kind of like potato on this. Whichever way you want to say it, it's generally fine.
Interesting.
But nevertheless, they are willing to provide an Oreshnik IRBM or an ICBM, whichever way you want to call it, because either one really works for this thing, to the Republic of Venezuela, at least from what they're saying. And according to an additional statement, Russia is actually one of Venezuela's key military technical partners. We supply the country with nearly the entire range of weapons, from small arms to aviation. The details and volumes of deliveries are classified, so the Americans might be in for a surprise. I see no obstacles to providing our friendly nation with new systems such as the Oreshnik or the well-proven caliber missiles. No international commitments restrict Russia in this regard. That was the statements from the Deputy Chairman of the State Duma Defense Committee. This is something that is a fairly good bit concerning. The Oreshnik IRBM, or ICBM, if we want to generally call it an ICBM, is not the most reliable missile, to put it that way, but it is also quite a decent long-range missile. This missile does have a significant distance to it, and let me go pull it up for y'all really quickly, so that way I can show y'all the exact range of the RS-26 Rubesh. Well, actually, let me go get the Oreshnik, because the Oreshnik is actually the modification of the Rubesh. So let me go get that here. And let me go make sure that we get the range here. Let's see. Reported speeds. Yeah, we don't really care about the speeds all too much. We need to know about the range.
Also, by the way, while you're looking for the range on that real quick, I saw an interesting question from David Tablet. He said, isn't this a violation of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty? And technically, according to what I know, this is simply the missile itself. Russia's not said they're going to give them nuclear-equipped ICBM missiles. It's simply a rumor that maybe Russia might give at least the missile body itself to Venezuela, but we're not told exactly what the payload would be with that missile. So unless they give them nuclear warheads, then technically they're not violating any treaty, at least according to what I know so far.
And Matthew would actually be correct with that. Providing a nuclear-capable platform or system is not a violation of the non-nuclear proliferation treaties. It is the fact of providing anyone with a nuclear warhead or a nuclear weapon of any type that will be in violation of the treaty. So you could actually give them hell, you could give them a Sarmat ICBM, and as long as you're not giving them nuclear warheads, it's actually not a violation of the non-proliferation treaties. Unfortunately, that's generally how it works. But that also works to our favor, because that allows us to give Ukraine Tomahawk missiles, because Tomahawk missiles are also nuclear capable. But if we do not give them to them in a nuclear capable form, or nuclear armed, and we just give them the conventional version of the Tomahawk cruise missile with a conventional warhead, then it is definitely 100% within treaty and not violating the non-proliferation treaty. The Oreshnik's max distance is 3,400 miles, which, I gotta be honest with y'all, when we moved out of Alabama, I was thinking, okay, now we're gonna be out of range of really anything that the Russians would give the Venezuelans, like a Shahed drone. That's not the reason we were moving, but still, that was something that I thought as a side note. This Oreshnik has just enough range that it can reach Salt Lake City. So, I mean, literally almost just Salt Lake City, about 100 miles beyond that. But that is...
That's if it works, though. I mean, you've seen in the past that this Oreshnik has been one of the most unreliable missile systems that Russia has ever fielded, pretty much in their history, because they've tested it so many times. It's failed tons of tests, and there's been even rumors that they tried to recently test it, perhaps during Zapad, and it didn't work then either. So this missile here had a very, very long development period. It was in development for a very long time because the rumor was they weren't able to get it to work right. So, I think they've used it once or maybe twice in Ukraine with a non-nuclear warhead, obviously, but I wouldn't really put much stock into the actual reliability of the thing, if it even works.
That's a good point. And of course, Oreshniks do have a very questionable success rate, and at least from our last projections off of all of the launches that we know of here on the channel, out of the 4 launches of the Oreshnik, 2 have completely failed. One didn't even leave the silo. It had a critical failure within its launching silo on the transport erector launcher, so it didn't even leave the silo, and the other one was launched and then immediately exploded several hundred feet above the TEL. So out of the 4 launches that we know of, 2 of them failed, meaning that this thing literally has a half and half chance of actually even leaving the launcher. If it does leave the launcher, however, the other 2 that did succeed did make it all the way to their targets. And so for that reason, if it was capable of being launched and was launched successfully, it would be able to reach 3,400 miles into the United States, really meaning that the entirety of the eastern seaboard is well within range. the farthest distance being only 2,500 miles away, and the most long-distance targets, which would be near to the west coast, including the city of LA, would also be in range as well. Basically, the only things that would be out of range of an Oreshnik IRBM, or an ICBM if you want to call it that, would be the northern part of California, most of Nevada, Oregon, a decent part of Idaho, and also the state of Washington. Those are generally the only states in the United States of America that would be out of range of an Oreshnik IRBM. Now, there are a lot of things that people have brought up here about the Oreshnik and also its vulnerabilities, and this one's actually a really good point that a lot of people have been bringing up that makes this not as scary as it is. The fact of the matter is, if the Venezuelans had one and they launched it, it's going to go into its boost phase right there in front of the U.S. Navy that's hanging out in the Eastern Caribbean right now, which does include several Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and a Ticonderoga-class missile destroyer. A missile cruiser, correction there. All of those carry the Standard Missile Type 2 or the Standard Missile Type 3. The Standard Missile Type 2s and Type 3s are entirely capable of conducting exoatmospheric interceptions of missiles of this type, especially at the incredibly close ranges of only several hundred miles away. Considering that from Puerto Rico to Venezuela, the range is about 500 miles, and the range of an SM-3 is about 1,000 miles, it is entirely possible that a single Ticonderoga-class missile cruiser could take on about a dozen of these Oreshniks and shoot them down well before they even got close to the United States of America. Meaning, in a sense, even if the Russians did provide those weapons to the Venezuelans, they wouldn't pose as big a threat as one would think. It still is the fact of the matter that the Russians are providing them at all that is an issue, and it is starting to show that the Russian Federation is going to pretty much try and force the door open, if they can, for Venezuela to not be invaded, if possible, to allow for Venezuela to survive later on into the future, for the Chinese to be able to continue to use Venezuela as a jumping board to build influence in the area and greater erode America's control over what is basically, as far as U.S. hegemony is concerned, America's backyard. That is a fairly concerning sort of a foreign policy situation and strategic situation that we find ourselves in at the moment, and it does lead us to wonder, what are the Russians going to be doing next, especially considering the play that they're making right now. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so now that we've heard today that the Russian officials are saying that they're already supplying weapons to Venezuela, and they may even provide the IRBM missiles very soon, the Oreshnik, what are your thoughts about that? And it looks like 56% of the audience said Russia will merely supply the weapons and they'll stop with that, while 24% are saying that Russia is simply bluffing, and 16% said Russia will defend Venezuela militarily. So this is a bit disturbing. I will admit, this is something to cause some alarm, because if you'll recall, back during the Cuban Missile Crisis, something very similar to this happened where the USSR wanted to put missiles in Cuba so that way they could try to strike the United States right off our shores. And obviously that led to almost the brink of war back when the Cuban Missile Crisis was happening. It looks like Russia's trying to repeat that same strategy in Venezuela this time. We haven't heard any allegations of them providing nuclear-equipped weapons, but they're going to provide missiles which can be nuclear equipped. So that is a major cause for concern. And also, y'all might realize that it seems like the U.S. is kind of sort of delaying their attacks on Venezuela. And at least in my opinion, it seems like they're delaying the attacks somewhat. And that could be because maybe there is the talk that maybe these missiles are being put in Venezuela. And that's sort of putting the U.S. in a checkmate position where we have to stop and think it over before we go any further with any attacks against Maduro. So it seems to me like Putin is really pulling a checkmate with this one. It's not as serious as providing nukes, but it's literally right close to that severity with nuclear weapons perhaps being put in Venezuela. So I'm kind of on the border with this one. I think that Russia might actually try to defend Venezuela just so they can try to get some leverage over the United States. But it's tough to say right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I would be with this 56%. I believe that Russia will only merely supply weapons because unlike the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Soviet Union's ability to conduct a power projection during that period of time, the Russian Federation does not have a feasible way to conduct power projection, at least at this moment, towards the nation of Venezuela in any sort of a significant way. While they are providing arms, it does appear that it would generally be in a very small number. We are only seeing about one IL-76 flight per day way into Venezuela from the Russian Federation, and generally considering the payload at which an IL-76 could carry, they cannot be providing an incredibly large number of really anything, at least for now, on a day-to-day basis to Venezuela. If anything, if they've been doing this for about 4 or 5 days, they may have been able to provide, maybe, at best, 2 Pantsiers and a single Buke M2 battery. That's probably the best that they've been able to provide, at least off of the several flights that we know of so far of the IL-76s. The Russian Navy coming down to Venezuela and helping to defend Venezuela from the United States would be an entirely different story. Getting the Russian Navy to Cuba was a logistical challenge in itself, and out of the 3 ships that took a part on that venture, one of them broke down on the way there, and then also broke down in Havana again. So getting a usable or large enough Russian combat fleet, either out of the Baltic from Kronstadt, or from the Northern Fleet up here in the Barents Sea, all the way down and towards Venezuela, and then also keeping there and sustaining them, that would be an incredibly difficult undertaking for the Russian Federation to be able to conduct. So I would generally say, for that reason, I do not believe that the Russian Federation will be getting involved directly in an armed defense of Venezuela, considering that that would be very tough for them to pull off from a logistical standpoint.
I would have thought that. I would have thought that too. And originally, I think I said that, but before we actually went on our move here to Utah, before we went off the air for a week, I believe I actually said that it seems unlikely that China or Russia would actually militarily defend Venezuela. But I must admit, seeing these new developments here and also hearing some new information, I'm starting to waver a little bit about that, because Russia would not send their real military to Venezuela, but they might send maybe some type of mercenary force or some type of paramilitary force to Venezuela to try to help defend it. That could be a possibility as well, because we are hearing allegations in the background from some of the Venezuelan opposition leaders that there might already be a Russian presence on the ground and also a Hamas and Hezbollah presence on the ground in Venezuela as well. So it sounds like we could be dealing with much more than maybe just the Venezuelan military. It could be some more of these paramilitary groups from many different regions of the world, perhaps the Middle East, and also out of Russia as well. So if those allegations turn out to be true, then it could be a lot more severe than we thought originally.
It may be a possibility that it could be more severe, and there are a larger amount of paramilitary groups that are in Venezuela that could offer some form of armed resistance, and especially considering that they're paid, they would definitely give more resistance, most likely, than the regular Venezuelan army. But still, at the same time, the issue is that even if they do resist, there is no way to feasibly resupply any of them once a U.S. invasion begins. They would be cut off completely from resupply, unless if Colombia got involved and was allowing itself to become a supply corridor into Venezuela, but that also would most likely reach the ire of the United States and require immediate action. So that might also close down as well, but then again, that really depends on whether the President of the United States would want to go all the way in, and then also conduct a joint war against Colombia simultaneously. We do know that Brazil doesn't really appear to have any appetite to support the Maduro regime, or really any instances of involvements going on in the northern area of South America. So we know that there wouldn't be a supply corridor through there. We also know that Guyana would not help out Venezuela because they're currently being occupied, at least a significant part of their country, by Venezuela. And on top of that, there are no other neighbors surrounding Venezuela, and if you wanted to access them to resupply them, you would have to reach them by sea. And once a conflict starts, the United States is going to blockade the coast, which would make it impossible to ship anything in. So it would be very tough, even with these mercenary groups inside of the country, it'd be very tough for them to resist incredibly long, because their munitions would run out, their food would run out, their supplies would run out, and then they wouldn't really have any ability to resist any farther because they just wouldn't have the means to. So that could be something to factor in as well, is that even if they are there, and that makes it a bit of a more difficult situation, their ability to resist will wane rapidly because they just will not have the ability to resupply themselves in any meaningful way.
Yeah, maybe so. It could be. I'm just very concerned right now about the idea that Russia could be putting larger missiles like ICBMs or IRBMs in Venezuela. And also, I'm not so concerned about the fighting capabilities of Hamas, Hezbollah, et cetera. And also, we're not even 100% sure if those claims are accurate. That's just claims being lobbed around by some, I guess you could say, prominent figures in Venezuela that are opposition to Maduro. They're saying that. So even if they're there, it probably wouldn't be too much of a match for the U.S. military. They'd probably get wiped out just like the Venezuelan military, but it's the trend of escalation. It seems like many different people are using Venezuela as leverage against the United States, which may start to explain why the U.S. is down there in such a large presence. Because if it turns out that those claims are true, that would give a whole new context to this massive naval buildup outside of Venezuela. So it is a bit concerning.
I would have to say, though, the problem here is, and this is something I've got to say, folks, as a bit of a warning, cautionary tale for everyone. This is why we can't go around and create problems where there isn't one yet. Because I've been saying on this channel, and Matthew and me have been saying on this channel, that Venezuela isn't really an issue that demands attention right now. It's something we could deal with in 5 to 7 years, and the situation will look like it does right now. And that's because we wouldn't touch it. The situation with Venezuela is not a great one. They are a Chinese-Russian aligned country, so they're obviously an Axis-aligned country in our backyard. And they are also a large amount of criminal and illicit activities that are conducted inside of Venezuela, and the nation is run by a dictator. That's absolutely insane. The problem is, though, is that when we take this situation right now and we go look at it, and then the United States points a finger at Venezuela and goes, this is a problem right here, and we're going to deal with it. What we are doing is we are telling everyone in the world, the Russians and the Chinese, we're putting a giant glowing neon sign on Venezuela that says, we are going to do something to these people, so you can come in now and try and stop that, and then turn this into a whole problem right now, way ahead of schedule. And that's what's currently happening. Now, I got to say this. Now, because of what's going on in Venezuela, I'd have to say that the United States needs to act quickly, because we cannot allow for the Russians and the Chinese to start building them up into an armed fortress down there. That would be absolutely stupid to walk away and leave this alone right now. This is now going to become an international affair, and not only that, allow the Axis powers to continue to fortify and build up Venezuela with a justifiable excuse, at least on their end. So now we have to deal with it. But this is also why we don't need to go around and take the 7th place problem and turn it into the 1st place problem, because then we'll see that everyone else in the world will give an equal reaction. And that's also another important thing, folks, about foreign policy. We always have to be very careful how we step. Whenever we open a Pandora's box, we can't close it. Like, for example, when we talk about Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, what did we see with Bagram? We wanted Bagram back. I gotta say, it was a mistake to give it up. Not the greatest idea, but we did give it up. And so, that was that. No reason to return on it. So we threatened the Taliban recently to go back and take Bagram. We pretty much opened up the Pandora's box there, and we put a giant glowing neon sign on Afghanistan for everyone around the world to see that America has a problem with Afghanistan. So what did China do? China immediately provided assistance to the Taliban and said, we'll help you guys out. And also, they are probably moving into Bagram right now. That's why we don't go around the world as the United States and create problems where there are one, or at least broadcast them loudly to the entire world, because you will usually see that the world is not a vacuum. Wherever we're conducting some action, our enemies will also be there conducting an equal reaction to what we're doing. And so,
And also, you got to remember as well, it's not just Venezuela. When we're speaking about South America and the U.S. sort of moving against certain countries in that region, it's Venezuela, it's Colombia perhaps, and now we're also hearing new reporting that Mexico also might be added to the menu for the United States as well when it comes to dealing with quote-unquote narco-terrorism. So it seems like the U.S. is getting extremely bogged down in South America and also expanding to Mexico as well. There is a valid problem there, by the way. There is definitely a narco-terrorism problem in those countries, but like we've said before, we've been like a broken record. It's not the time for that. Like that problem has existed for ages. It's existed for decades. So why choose now, when the world's on the brink of World War III, to start dealing with the problem in South America, when we're about to have a major war perhaps break out in Europe and also maybe even in Asia between China and Taiwan? Why get distracted and bogged down in places that have been a problem for many, many years?
I would have to agree. It's not a good move, but at the same time, folks, I also have to say this. While I'm saying this is a cautionary tale and a cautionary story as to why we don't go around the world creating problems where there really wasn't one, at least yet, because it creates a reaction from our adversaries, and then it turns it into a giant ordeal, because now this is a huge ordeal. Now we were playing the cards that we've been dealt, and we didn't grab the greatest of hands, making Venezuela pretty much our ace in the hole, in the way, But that's what it is now. So this is now a major ordeal. Now the Russians are providing them with weapons. So right now, here's what we have. Here's how this is going to go. So we either now get completely involved against Venezuela, and we crush them now, and get this done and over with, or we back off, and we walk away, which also looks like a sign of weakness, because this is very light resistance at this point that the Russians are providing. It's just a little bit of armed support that they're giving them, and it's not even a large amount. But if we back off, it's then going to be seen as a sign of weakness. And not only that, then the Russians and the Chinese are going to look at Venezuela and go, oh, well, look at that. America backed off because we gave them some weapons. So now we know that Venezuela is practically the damn Rock of Gibraltar in this area. I mean, we will be able to stay here forever. So they will give them everything. I mean, China and Russia will sit there and arm Venezuela to the teeth, and then we'll never be able to go in there and easily deal with Venezuela at that point, because the Chinese and the Russians will be in there tooth and nail in every single way possible, and they will also turn the Venezuelan military into a capable fighting force over the next several years if we walk away from this right now at this point. So now we've forced ourselves, in a way, in having to deal with this. Now we actually are having to curb Russian and Chinese influence inside of Venezuela, because it's quite literally physically present in there. So I gotta say, folks, it wasn't the greatest move to turn Venezuela into a situation, but now that it is, and now that the Russians are turning it into one as well by supplying them with arms and weapons and leaving open the door to further supply them, now we have to get involved. I mean, there literally is no other way around this, because if we don't get involved now and we try and walk away and deal with this another day, this is going to be a lot worse of a situation, and this thing will have grown into a monster later on down the road. So with that in mind, a lot of people are actually talking about the fact of whether or not Hezbollah, Hamas, and other forces are actually inside of Venezuela as well. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So right now, and by the way, folks, this is claims being made by individuals in Venezuela that are opposition leaders to Maduro. So these are simply rumors. So take them for what you will. But the sources are claiming that Russia, Hamas, and Hezbollah are operating in Venezuela. And do you believe the claims? And 40% said yes, it sounds likely true, while 39% said no, it sounds like fake rumors. And 8% said, yeah, it might happen soon, possibly, but not right this second. So I will say, I do believe that Russia is there. I believe that. Not as Russia as like the Ministry of Defense, but more like Russian paramilitary forces. That is likely there, because we have seen Russian flights going to and from Venezuela, allegedly carrying weapons to give to the Maduro regime. So it only makes sense that with those weapons probably came some form of Russian forces that probably came with it. We're not sure of the number, but I'm sure they're there. Now, Hamas and Hezbollah, that's another story, because that's from an entirely different region of the world, and while those forces are generally aligned with Russia, we have no real proof on the ground that they're actually there. It's possible they could be there, but right now it's all speculation. So my gut is telling me that it's likely true, but once again, it's purely speculation. So I'm just going off of a gut instinct right here. I would imagine that some form of those forces are probably all there in some form or another. So I'm with the 41%. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, maybe. I'd actually have to be in the unsure and undecided group, because Hamas and Hezbollah, at least as armed fighting forces, don't exist anywhere in the world outside of Lebanon and the Gaza Strip, in any armed fighting capacity, at least that we would know of, on any sort of an international stage. So it'd be very weird. Like, I just have to say, it'd be weird that out of everywhere in the world that Hamas and Hezbollah would exist, which once again, these terrorist forces in Hamas and Hezbollah, they exist solely with the idea of the destruction of Israel, pretty much primarily, and the creation of Palestine as the only state that would exist where Israel is currently. It would be incredibly weird for them to have armed fighting elements in Venezuela, in the middle of northern South America, in the jungle, for no reason. Like, their fight, or their ideological fight, doesn't even have a justification in Venezuela, so I wouldn't really know why they would be there. And it also isn't like it's a large Islamic capital of the world. This part of northern South America is heavily Catholic, so I don't even know where in the world the Islamic population would exist in Venezuela for this sort of a force to be there. Still, I'm not saying it's out of the question. They might be there. But at the same time, it'd be incredibly weird if they were, because it just doesn't really make a lot of sense, considering their ideological motives and their entire historical presence has been centered entirely around Israel, Lebanon, the Gaza Strip, and the West Bank only.
But you got to remember, though, you have to remember as well that Hamas, Hezbollah, and all the Iranian proxy forces, they all have an interest in causing hell and havoc in the United States. So we've heard the reports, and also many people are starting to sort of wake up to the reports that throughout all the years of people sneaking across the U.S. border, there have been allegedly operatives of those groups that have crossed into our border. They arrive here, and then they get in the country, and they're sleepers until they're told to do something by their leaders back in Iran. So to me, it wouldn't be too far-fetched because they're obviously coming into the United States to do harm to the American citizens, and it wouldn't be too far-fetched as well if those same forces were being used in places like Venezuela to help bolster and also maybe train and assist the Venezuelan armed forces to actually oppose the United States if something were to happen down there, because Iran would love nothing more for the U.S. to get bogged down in South America. They would love nothing more than that, just like Russia would love it as well, because that means the U.S. is distracted in a different region of the world than the region that they're currently fighting in. So it would definitely serve their interest for that to happen. So me personally, I think it's possible. I have no evidence to prove it's 100% true, but I would say it's at least possible.
It is possible. It's not out of the question, but it would still be quite weird for them to be there. That's one thing I will say. That's why I'm undecided. It would just be so weird for them to be there. That's generally my thing. And also on top of that, I would say it would be more plausible at that point with what you're saying that they would be in Mexico than Venezuela. Because at least with Mexico, you could try and cross the U.S. border. In Venezuela, you're not even close to the United States. You're about 1,000 miles away by sea, and more than that by land.
Yeah, maybe so. I mean, they could be operating all over the place. It's just hard to tell. It would be great if we had proof of it, though. Like, we're hearing all these rumors and all these claims, but so far, nobody is like taking picture evidence or showing, here's this individual who's a member of Hamas. There is no real evidence of it. So right now, it's simply claims by people that are allegedly in the know, but, that's not much to go on. It's just claims.
And also, I just saw someone say, "No, Hamas is in Yuma, Arizona." No, I mean, like, here's another thing. Here's another thing. Like, someone from like Hamas from the Gaza Strip, being in Yuma, Arizona, and just a gang of them hanging out. That's a pretty big stretch. I mean, Yuma, Arizona, out of everywhere they'd hang out, Yuma, like out of everywhere they could be, like a major city, for example. I mean, that would be quite weird. What you're probably seeing is a whole bunch of self-radicalized people that are hanging out in Yuma, Arizona, that claim they're a part of Hamas. Because there are a lot of people here in America who have never been in the Gaza Strip, who never officially were a part of the actual Hamas that's in the Gaza Strip, or Hezbollah in Lebanon. And for some reason, they self-radicalized themselves over the internet, either to become a part of Hezbollah or Hamas, and then they're domestic terrorists that profess that they're a part of Hamas or Hezbollah. But that's not the same thing as an actual blood-born or actual real ascended Hezbollah Hamas member from Lebanon or the Gaza Strip taking the trip all the way to the United States of America. That's a fairly different sort of a thing. So I would generally have to say that that's a lot more likely than the idea of just, gazillions of Hamas fighters, coming to Mexico and then crossing the border, and then, just gangs of them hanging out in every single town in America. Because it's like, like if there's that many of them hanging out in that many towns across America, they could have all flown back to the Gaza Strip and taken over Israel at that point, because there would have had to have been millions of them in the United States at that point for a little gang of them to be in every single town and every single place in America. At least that's what I would say. That would be my 2 cents. But anyways, moving on from that, though, we do also have some other significant news that has come out of the area, at least about the United States and our actions within this region. In Trinidad and Tobago, a video has emerged today that appears to be showing U.S. Armed Forces on the move, possibly even the 22nd MEU, or Marine Expeditionary Unit. And here's the clip right here. Well, you see it's led by a police motorcade.
Oh, wow, that guy right there almost sideswiped that car when he's going by. He did a little swerve at them.
Man, he did a little... And we can also see the convoy passing through. It appears to be carried by civilian 18-wheelers. And it does appear that based off of the vehicles, This highly likely does appear to be a Marine Corps unit, just based off of the vehicles that are present here. We see the police waving the car on by.
There's a lot of Connex boxes full of something.
20-foot Connex boxes, mind you. Military standard. So that is a little interesting to note as well. But one thing that I do want to point out here is that HEMTTs, or HEMTs, are fairly common amongst all of the branches, generally. But one thing that is a little bit interesting to note is that none of these appear to be in any sort... Let me check this here. And it looks like tricolor SARC. It appears to me it may be the 22nd MU. We do know that at least the 22nd MU is made up of several battalions, and one of these battalions may be here inside of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, of course, getting any further than that would start to get into operational security issues, but it is quite clear that the U.S. Armed Forces are starting to have a wide-reaching spread and presence throughout the entirety of the Eastern Caribbean, all the way from Trinidad and Tobago, just miles from the coast of Venezuela, and all the way up to Puerto Rico. Not only that, the USS Gerald R. Ford and its carrier strike group was spotted today passing through the Strait of Gibraltar on its way into the Eastern Caribbean. The USS
Why is
Gerald...
it going so slow? Like, am I getting impatient here? But it seems like it's going extremely slow. I think the estimate was it was 2 weeks away, but this thing is really behind schedule.
It covered, according to, let's see here, who's this fella? I want to give him his credit. According to Swamp Ghost, the USS Gerald R. Ford, at least at the time this photograph had been taken, had covered 200 miles in 16 hours. So let's divide that down into the hours, and let's see how many knots it's going, or miles an hour at least. So 200 miles divided by 16 hours, it's going at a speed of about 12.5 knots, or 12.5 miles an hour, actually. That's more like 11.7 knots, if I'm not mistaken, or 11.4. But what is the top speed, or at least the supposed top speed, of the Gerald R. Ford class aircraft carrier? Let's take a look at that to get an idea. Is this thing going at all available speed? I would have a feeling the answer is no. Let's see. In excess, so it can go in excess of 30 knots or 35 miles an hour. So this thing's only going at about 1/3 power ahead. So not full all available steam. It's actually kind of just bebopping through, really. Not incredibly fast. So I don't know what's taking it so long. I do not know why it is taking it so long. That is actually a good question. Still,
It makes you wonder if it's an intentional delay, because once this thing shows up, it's like, is there any pieces of the puzzle that would be left at that point for the U.S. to, plausibly stall? Because, once this thing arrives, it's either time to take action, or we're just going to sit there and sit off their coast indefinitely. It seems like maybe it's an intentional delay. I'm obviously not a naval expert. I don't know how fast these ships are usually supposed to go, but the people that are in the know about these ships said that it was supposed to be there in about 2 weeks, and this thing is really taking a very long time to get there. So I'm seeing some people speculate that maybe it is intentional. That's my guess. It seems like it could be, but it's really weird.
It is quite weird. I don't know why it's going so slow. It's a great question, really. It's only going a third of its available speed, at least from what we would know publicly, and that would lead you to believe that this is some sort of a deliberate order that's been given to the ship for it to travel at a slower speed. Have no idea why. Maybe it's the Category 5 hurricane that's still wreaking havoc down there, and so they told them no rush. Just slow down the speed and arrive on time when the hurricane's expected to be gone by then. That might be the case, but still a very interesting sort of an occurrence. Nonetheless, considering that the aircraft carrier is traveling so slowly, still... It will be bringing along with it about 80 aircraft, fixed wing and rotary wing, on board the carrier, and also 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, which are a part of the escort for this aircraft carrier and a part of the carrier strike group. So it's going to be bringing a large amount of additional firepower and air power into the area once it arrives. It's just that it's going to take it a good while to arrive. Probably several more days. Hell, probably a week and a half at this given speed for it to cross the Atlantic if it keeps up this speed the whole way. So with that in mind, I hope that does address that the best we can, at least with the current position of the carrier and where it's going to be here, hopefully within the next week or week and a half. Hopefully it'll pick up the speed and just cross the Atlantic in a very short amount of time and arrive inside the Eastern Caribbean. It's not like it's trying to handle any sort of boiler pressure or anything like that. It is, for example, like with fuel, like with oil or coal, this is a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, so literally the only thing limiting it is the bridge's inputs and commands. So they can put it all
Yeah.
the way up to max speed and get it into the Eastern Caribbean immediately without any delay.
Yeah, I'm seeing some people say maybe 2 more weeks it'll be in Venezuela. 2 weeks is always honestly. I think maybe 2 weeks. If it takes longer than 2 weeks to get from Gibraltar to Venezuela, I'm going to be extremely skeptical at that point about what's going on with that because honestly, I'm kind of like halfway joking here. Like the 2 more weeks thing has become like a meme at this point, but it shouldn't be more than 2 more weeks, just based on my guess.
And also, I saw some people say, how fast are the escorting destroyers? Well, they're quite fast. The escorting destroyers can get up to speeds in excess of 30 knots. The actual speed is not published, but it can keep up with the speed of the aircraft carrier. So that is also something to keep in mind as well. And also, there are fleet auxiliaries present in the Eastern Caribbean, including oilers, that will be able to refuel these Arleigh once they arrive, or they can go to port at Ponce, and the destroyers can just be rotated out for a brief moment for refueling and replaced by the other Arleigh that are in the Caribbean, which can then take up the carrier strike group role and screening role for the carrier. This is entirely doable. I see some people also saying in the chat, I just saw, I gotta say this. I just saw some of the worst misinformation I've seen in a hot minute. Someone said the Gerald R. Ford is the only nuclear-powered aircraft carrier that the U.S. has. The rest are oil-fired. And, sir, I don't know if you think this is still World War II, but it's been about, I think, 50 years since the last time we had an oil-fired aircraft carrier. I think the last oil-fired aircraft carriers we had were the Intrepid class way back in the 60s. Since then, everything's been nuclear-powered. That's been a huge thing of the U.S. Navy and our abilities is the nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. They require no refueling. They require no oilers, no tenders. They require none of that. The only thing they require is resupplies of food, fuel, and munitions, food for the men, fuel for the aircraft, munitions for the aircraft, and beyond that, these ships can make all available speed and literally bust ass anywhere around the world without having to make any concerns for fuel loss or any form of breakage, because nuclear reactors and steam turbines are incredibly simple machines. Well, not simple, at least in their construction, but simple in their operation. They are wildly simple and have very few parts that can break, so they're generally made to be able to go underway at incredibly fast speeds and be practically anywhere in the world in a very short amount of time. So a little
Man,
bit.
whoever said that, honestly, it's like I guess they're envisioning like Steamboat Willie, like yanking on the little air horn and stuff like that, like steaming across the ocean at this point. I'm not sure why anybody would think that, to be honest. Like, no offense, but we've been well beyond that for a good minute.
Man, a guy out here thinking that we're still running the USS Yorktown out here, man.
I tell you what, bring out Steamboat Willie. We need him at the helm.
Man, I've seen so many people saying things in the chat about the carriers, and I got to be honest with y'all, folks. It's been snapping neurons in my head so far tonight from what people have been saying about the carriers. Some people have been saying that the carriers can't go fast because they'll break. This is not the Admiral Kuznetsov. This is the Gerald R. Ford. The Gerald R. Ford does not break. The Gerald R. Ford went through the most rigorous sea trials yet to date for a carrier, and it succeeded with flying colors. I mean, the Gerald R. Ford had amazing craftsmanship go behind it. It is not going to be breaking down at sea. It does not need support tugs. The Navy doesn't even have support tugs. Well, we do, but we don't send them out there with the carriers. So, it's just been driving me crazy, folks. I've been seeing it. I'm like, what? I'm like, no. It's like, no. These carriers, the American carriers, are the largest in the world, the most resilient in the world, the fastest in the world, the longest enduring in the world, the largest crewed in the world, and also the most capable in the world by the sort of computers, electronics, and other systems that we have on board. And also the most deadly by the amount of firepower that they can carry anywhere in the world. American carriers, this is not even propaganda from the United States, this is just the truth. American carriers are truly the best on the planet. We can get them anywhere and everywhere. Really, literally nothing is beyond their abilities. It's the closest thing we have in our timeline to a floating Death Star from Star Wars. It's truly an incredible machine. But beyond that, a lot of people have been talking about the United States and its at least supposed actions that we're wanting to conduct against Venezuela. Because we did get to hear today that at least according to the current administration, they are weighing military options to oust President Maduro, including airstrikes, special forces raids, and seizing oil fields. Legal guidance is being drafted to justify action without congressional approval, according to the New York Times. And this has led a lot of people to talk about what is going on yet and giving their 2 cents on it. Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so this is a question right here that's gotten a lot of people very, very heated, it looks like. And this is a very controversial question, but it says the experts say the U.S. must cease military operations near Venezuela or get congressional approval, and now is the deadline for that. And what are your thoughts? The poll is almost evenly split. 40% said yes, congressional approval is needed right now, and 40% also said no, armed action is not yet started, and therefore the president does not need to seek congressional approval, and 14% said it's very complicated and much harder than the poll's making it out to be. So just to give y'all a little bit of an overview here, the governing document that governs the situation is the War Powers Resolution of 1973, which limits a president's ability to deploy armed forces into an armed conflict. So the rule is it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of sending troops into hostile situations, and the big part is, this is the part that's currently up for debate, it prevents military action from continuing for more than 60 days without authorization unless Congress grants an extension. So that is the argument right now. Has armed action been taken against Venezuela right now to warrant armed action starting so far? And that's the big question. And honestly, for me, I would say the moment the first drug boat was struck in international waters after the U.S. made this major buildup off of Venezuela, that was probably the first armed action that was taken against the Venezuelan regime. But that's just my opinion. Of course, this is something that's going to be debated in court, I'm sure. So, everybody's opinion is pretty much meaningless until a court decides on it. But it looks like people are pretty much even on this one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's a fairly controversial topic, actually, folks, this question about whether the U.S. has to cease operations without congressional approval. And I would have to say that if I was to give an answer, I would give one simply off of the idea of maintaining checks and balances within the U.S. government. And so I'd have to lean into the 41% that say that it needs congressional approval. Even if there is an argument to be made that it does not need congressional approval, I always believe that there should always be the involvement of another branch in the action of any other. And so if the Congress is passing a bill, it should always pass over the desk of the president for final approval or for a veto. And if the president is conducting an action, it must always go through the Congress. And if any one of those two is conducting an action, it also should be up for review to the Supreme Court, or any other higher court for that matter, to see if the action is lawful or not. That is simply just the way this government works. It's overly complicated, very cumbersome, but it has worked for 250 years, and I think that it'll continue to work and endure for quite longer, as long as we keep to the original principles that it was created under. And so for that reason, I'd have to say that it does need congressional approval because the Congress, to put it this way, the president is the elected representative of the people of the United States and the commander-in-chief of the armed forces and also the leader of the executive. However, well, he is the executive as a matter of fact. However, at the same time, the Congress is elected of the people and is the elected representation of all of the peoples of the United States of America. And for that reason, I think that we should ensure that there is a synergy between the two and that we see that the Congress, the elected representatives of the people, and probably the best representation we have of the people at the moment, definitely has a say and an approval on this very matter. Even if they say no, they say no, and that's that, and we have to walk away, and that'll be a mistake. But that is what it is, and that's how democracy works. But at the same time, if they say yes, then there is the legitimacy of the Congress also being behind the action as well. So I would have to be with the 41% on that.
So do you say, excuse me, I don't know something's got me like scratching too with the whole coffin thing. But anyways, back to the question. What I was about to say, do you think that the first drug boat that was struck off of Venezuela's coast was that the armed action or the catalyst to start the 60-day clock for the president to have to seek congressional approval? Me personally, I believe, in my layman's opinion and the very little law school education that I do have, I would say that does qualify as armed action against Venezuela, because the argument by U.S. officials was that Maduro is a cartel leader and that therefore these are cartel boats heading out into international waters, and they're striking them because they're trying to stop the cartels from bringing drugs into the United States. So to me, that sounds like the start of a narco war against the Maduro regime. So I would say it seems like armed action, and that would have started the clock of the 60-day timer to begin. But what do you think?
I would actually say no, because the thing is that we are striking the narco-terrorist vessels as parts of cartels, and the cartels are declared as terrorist organizations that are external of the Venezuelan government. So I would say that striking those boats more so amounts to anti-piracy activity if we look at it in a maritime sense, more so than direct armed action against Venezuela that would require congressional approval. I would say that the 60-day timer would start once we officially strike a vessel of the Venezuelan Navy, the Venezuelan Coast Guard, or a Venezuelan merchant vessel, or a airstrike or any sort of armed strike or armed action on Venezuela on land. That's what I would say would start the 60-day timer, because what we're doing right now, if we're and I'm saying this, folks, off of the position that the executive would take. The executive is going to say, but the 60-day timer hasn't started because we declared all of these cartels in South America as terrorist organizations, and what we are conducting is anti-narco terrorist operations, aka, in a lot simpler of a term, anti-piracy activities. So we're pretty much just going around blowing up pirates, which don't really have an attachment to any government for that matter. They are they are anarchists for the large part. They are without a government.
So I'm just going off the government's argument. The government in the United States is arguing that Maduro is the head of a cartel, and they have a $50 million bounty out, and they say he's the leader of the cartel, which it appears to be he likely is, at least based on what the U.S. has presented as evidence. So I would personally say that these cartel boats or these narco boats that the U.S. keeps striking, I would say personally that that is part of the cartel that they're saying that Maduro is involved with. I would say that seems to be the case. So in my view, just in my personal opinion, I would say those are extensions of the Venezuelan government to a certain degree of these pirate boats, drug boats, whatever you want to call them, going out into international waters that keep getting struck. So I can see your side of it. I can see where you're coming from on that, but I believe Venezuela being a narco state, sending out these narco boats, I would say that personally, to me, that seems like armed action.
I could definitely, I really could see it either way. But trying to be the devil's advocate there, that's why I was like, these really are more so pirates than anything, so they really have no affiliation to any nation. But it's actually a really tough one because you're making a great point. I think I'm making a great point. You could really see it either way. It just depends on how you want to split the hair. And I also just saw someone in the chat say, well, I mean, let's see here. They are still citizens of Venezuela. But here's the thing about that, though, and here's what's really interesting about piracy or terrorist activities. Every single pirate and terrorist is a national of some country somewhere. But once they take up the banner of a terrorist group like ISIS or Hezbollah or Hamas or, a cartel, which is now declared a terrorist group by the United States, you pretty much lose your affiliation with your nationality. You pretty much become a person with no nation, at least for how the international world is going to view you. So if you're out on the high seas, and you're in the North Atlantic, say, and you're about to hijack a ship, and that ship turns out to be a U.S. destroyer, and they see you and they're like, aha, you're a part of that terrorist group. They're not going to look at you as a Mexican or a Cuban or a Dominican or a Venezuelan. They're going to look at you as a terrorist affiliated with that terrorist organization. You're not really provided any protections by your government. You're operating outside of your government's purview. You're operating as a lawless individual on the high seas. And so for that reason, you're going to be dealt with that way. You're going to be dealt with as a person with no nation, with no real identity. And that's how those sorts of groups are dealt with. And that's kind of the part where a lot of people miss the boat on this, because a lot of people don't say that when we hit the Houthis. Like, a lot of people don't go, well, they're also Yemeni. Because they are. We never notify the Yemeni government, and we never get congressional approval when we bomb the Houthis. Biden didn't, nor did Trump. Just to say their names, not getting political here, but both of them did conduct airstrikes on the Houthis, and neither one of them had to get congressional approval for that. And we also didn't have to treat it as though it was armed action against the Yemenis. We just dealt with it as it was armed actions against piracy on the high seas and the Houthis themselves. That's generally.
I just want to correct you. I just want to correct you real quick, though. You said they missed the boat on this one. Actually, the U.S. did not miss the boat. They hit the boat 10 times, actually.
Yeah, a lot of times, actually. A lot of times, as a matter of fact. So they didn't miss the boat. They actually got that one dead on. But still, I hope that does address that, at least the best I can, about the deal with terrorists or anyone who's involved in piracy, which is also a form of terrorism these days. But generally, folks, I think what we're going to do on the channel, because I find this to be a lot more simple, is that terrorists, at least with how we're dealing with them right now, are not terrorists in the traditional sense as terrorists on land, like we've been dealing with in the Middle East for decades now. These guys are always being hit at sea. So basically what they're doing, if we want to describe it as anything, it's piracy. We're literally fighting pirates in the Caribbean right now. We're
Pirates
hunting
in the Caribbean.
Yeah,
You're full of puns, honestly.
Yeah,
There's some puns coming out tonight.
I mean, man, we're literally bombing Captain Crack Sparrow in the middle of the Caribbean right now. That's what we're doing. And so we're going to just collectively call all of the cartel terrorist groups or the narco terrorists. We're just going to start calling them pirates, because that's basically what they are when we're blowing them up, is that they're conducting piracy on the high seas. They're either they're not boarding any ships, which is what a lot of people think of as pirates. They're trading in contrabands and illicit cargoes, which is also piracy as well. So we're basically going up against pirates. So that's what we're just going to start calling them, is the pirates of the Caribbean, because that's literally what they are. That's what we're dealing with right now. But anyways, yar, that crack me fine, Captain. Like,
man, I tell you what, that's a lot of Crack Sparrow out there. I tell you what, that guy right there, he's a doozy.
Man, man, you got Captain Crack Sparrow. He goes, Can I have any crack? Like, he doesn't ask for rum, he just asks for crack. I tell you got any? I was looking for the black tar heroin. That's a man. Man, honestly, man, I'm telling you, this whole Caribbean deal is something else. Really, folks, it cracks me up a lot, like all the puns you can make about this whole deal. But anyways, folks, it is time for us to start moving on into the other major news of the night, because we've been running the show, crazily enough, for an hour and 13 minutes. But before we get on into the rest of the news for the night, which is huge news that's been coming out of Russia today, we do want to make sure that before we get to that, we want to make sure to address a couple of questions from the chat, so that we get to talk to all of y'all, because we've hardly had a chance to talk to all of y'all since we've come back. And since we've returned to streaming. I'm so sorry I'm coughing like that, folks. I'm still trying to get over the sickness. Hopefully I'm sounding a lot better tonight. I hope I am, but I'm still kind of like with the sickness. Down with the sickness, I guess you could call it. But before we get on into the rest of our news, Matthew, let's get a couple of questions.
All right, so getting into our questions, and also, by the way, I see people that live in Utah saying they think it might be the dry air getting to us. Honestly, I think y'all might be onto something with that, because I am not ill like Andrew, so I don't know what's going on. It could be the dry air, actually, so I might have to maybe look into like a humidifier or something for the new HQ, at least where I'm at, because I don't want to be scratching all the time like that, okay? I don't want to come down with the Crack Sparrow scratches or something like that. I don't want that to happen. But anyways, jumping into our first Super Chat chat of the night. This one goes to Rainman878, and he puts an extremely generous $100 donation. And thank you very much, Rainman, for that support right there. It's very generous of you, and thank you very much to help keep our work running. And he said, "Evening, gents," and pull a question from the chat if you want.
Hey, and thank you so much for the massive support, and a good evening to you. I hope you've been doing well, and thank you for being here tonight with us, Ray. And I gotta say, we will pull a question from the chat in your honor, but a huge thanks to you, all the way up. You know, I gotta change that. You're kind of the way up in Canada, because you're not all the way up there anymore. Because we're in Utah. I'm going to be honest with y'all, folks. This whole thing of being in Utah, it isn't really mentally setting in for me. Because even when I'm on the map now, I'm almost always zooming into Alabama still. Like, we're still there. It's like the whole 40 hours of driving a Penske truck and getting spinal bifida and having my ears bleed from how loud that truck was just made the whole thing, like, meld away like it never happened. Like, it just melted my brain. Because I still can't wrap my head around we're in Salt Lake City, and it's beautiful.
Well, we pretty much lived in the Enforcer HQ, like basically inside the entire time we were in Alabama, and we're kind of doing that right now as we're still trying to set up. So that's probably why you can't tell the difference, is we literally have not had a chance to even hardly leave the new HQ at all since we moved. You really can't tell the difference till you actually go outside and touch the grass.
Yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of grass to touch around here, folks. Loads of it. So many public parks, it's unreal. I've never seen this many in my life. But beyond that, I've got to say, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support. Up in Canada. Not all the way up in Canada anymore, just up in Canada. How far is it from Canada to Salt Lake? Let's just check from border to border. So it is that is not far at all. 570 miles north. Dang, that is crazy, Matthew, because we drove like 900 miles almost in that one day. And that's only 571 miles north. We could actually drive that in a day and make it to Canada now. From Alabama, or at least Birmingham, Alabama, in a straight line, Canada is about 1,000 miles away. Or if we were to go over here, it was about 610. So if we're measuring it like we were Utah, so that way it's fair, it's about 1,000. But if we're measuring to the closest spot, it's about 610. So I still got to say, all the way up in Canada then. And we'll do all the way up in Canada. But a big thanks to you for the support all the way up in Canada. Because folks like you who have been supporting this channel for years have been helping us to make this thing possible and keep it running. So that way we can keep our lights on, so that way we can pay our bills. And that way we can focus here on this channel on working hard to cover this news, and then we can get off air and crack open a cold coconut with the boys, and also have a $5 Costco chicken. Both of those products are available at Costco, and we're not sponsored by them, by the way. I just got to make that clear. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and we will make sure to get that live chat in your honor. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the question from the live chat here is going to go to Decepticon, and he said, is Russia trying to recreate the Cuban Missile Crisis by putting the IRBMs in Venezuela?
I don't think so. I think what they're trying to do, though, is give a analogous threat to the United States that we would with the non-nuclear Tomahawks, is that they would give Venezuela non-nuclear Oreshniks, meaning that Venezuela could conduct strikes, actual strikes, on U.S. cities, but they wouldn't be nuclear in form. That's at least what I'm believing at the moment. They did state that there was nothing that Russia is a part of by treaty that would stop them from sending that, and the only way that statement would be true, if the Russians aren't lying, usually they are, but let's say they aren't, the only way that providing an Oreshnik would not be violating any treaty that Russia is a part of is as long as it's non-nuclear. So I would generally say, I don't think they're trying to recreate a Cuban Missile Crisis 2.0, but what I think they're trying to do is that they're trying to get a hand of cards to play in terms of foreign policy with the United States to see that there is an equal exchange where we don't give Tomahawks to Ukraine and they don't give Oreshniks to the Venezuelans. I think that's generally what they're working towards right now. So with that, I hope that does address that live chat well, and I got to thank you so much once again for that incredible, massive support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep it running and keep this thing a reality. So huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one. Before we move on into the next one, though, I do want to address this really quickly. I got to say, folks, there are no politics allowed on the channel. I haven't made a speech on this a while, but I see a lot of people feeling really free to talk about politics openly here in the channel, and I'm going to have to put my foot down on that. It is completely against the rules. I don't know why a lot of people are trying to get away with that these days. I've seen a lot of people doing that tonight. It's completely against the rules. If you do not like the current president, that's none of our business. That's none of anyone else's business. If you like him, that's none of anyone else's business either. This channel is entirely about analysis. If we say anything about foreign policy that's positive or negative, it's not to say that we love the president or hate him. It's just to say that's what it is. It's good or it's bad. We're not a political channel. We never will be. And we're also not going to be a political battleground for people on the internet so that way they can come on here and think that they really own the libs or they own the conservatives or whoever with the points that have been made 9 million times here on the internet. The Release Spring Army is a non-political organization. The Enforcer channel, by extension, is also a non-political organization, and we're going to keep it that way. We also are going to enforce that heavily in the chat, so I'm just going to put this out there. One time becoming political, it's going to be a timeout. Second time becoming political, it is a ban. That rule has always stood. It still stands to this day. So with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our second super chat here goes to Bobby, who puts in a $100 support as well, and huge shout to you, Bobby, for that massive support yet again. And he's always supporting the channel in a very big way, and we do appreciate that very, very much. And Bobby said, "Sorry I'm late, guys, and my bad."
Hey, and it's perfectly okay, Bobby. Better late than never. That's what I always say. And a lot of people have been getting really confused because we are an hour early, apparently, for a lot of people because of daylight savings time, which is a freaking shame. I hate that daylight savings time is a thing, and I hope that it eventually is repealed nationwide because it is very confusing for our international viewers why we're on an hour early, and it also is very confusing to us why we're now on an hour early when we're not supposed to be. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing rolling well on into the future. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. And so with that, we are on to the final question of the chat, well, of this segment, and then we'll be moving on to the rest of the news. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so our last one here goes to Brian Sodor, and he puts in a $50 support. And thank you very much, Brian, for that $50 support right there. And we do appreciate that as well. And also, hopefully I'm saying your last name properly. It's I believe it's Sudor or Sodor. I'm not really sure, but let me know in the chat. But we do appreciate that. And I do not see a comment attached to it. But once again, thank you very much for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you massively for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but we are greatly appreciative, and we thank you so much for helping this channel to keep running, because folks like you help to support this channel, help us to get our $5 Costco chickens, and help us to be able to hunker down with the lights on and keep this show running every day and put our full attention behind it. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the rest of the news. Before we do, however, I did see someone bring this up, and I just wanted to address it since I just brought it up and someone brought it up a counter. Someone said, well, it just seems like it's a fit to talk about politics here because y'all are talking about foreign affairs and foreign policy. And I get where a lot of people think that, but the difference is that foreign policy just has no impact on domestic politics, and that's where a lot of people kind of missed the train or missed this boat when it comes to that sort of a deal. Foreign policy has nothing to do with domestic politics, has nothing to do with one party or the other, here in America at least. Foreign policy is a very one-track sort of a thing. You saw it in action this year. You saw the president of the United States say that the Ukrainians were in the wrong and the Russians were, the misunderstood stepchildren of the world. They were getting beaten terribly, and that we were going to come together and end this whole thing. And now, a year later, because foreign policy is one-tracked and there's only one answer to it, now we see what it really is. The Russians are lying bastards, like we all knew, and the Ukrainians are fighting a war for their very survival. And that's what it was. That's how foreign policy is. That's how our analysis works. So we have no stake in the game, and I have no skin in the game at all, in the domestic politics side of things. If y'all are domestically political, I think that's your political right. That's your constitutional right, as a matter of fact. And I 100% support you in having whatever political opinion you so choose. However, I don't support people coming on this channel and telling me what political opinion they have and why so-and-so stupid or why this other guy's great, that really has no business in the whole deal. And on top of that, folks, you got to remember, whoever's in office right now, in any position, in the Congress, in the presidency, they're the president and they're the Congress member until the next election. So there really is no point in hoping that the ship sinks, because you're on that very ship with that same captain that I got. So you just kind of got to hope that, they make the right calls, and that's also where we make our analysis from. It's never to sit there and say, what an idiot. It's always to say, oh, this doesn't look like it's being done well, and the ship could be steered a little bit better this way with this kind of a gentle guidance here. Maybe we get a little bit of strongly worded sometimes with that gentle guidance, but generally we don't like to take political sides here on the channel, and never have and never will. But with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night. And we've got plenty of it, folks, a load of it. And so, moving us on into the rest of the news for the night, we are now going to be moving on into the Russian Federation, because things have been going poorly for them. For one, they have 5,000 North Korean construction troops in their country helping with infrastructure reconstruction. How in the world do the North Koreans do that when they haven't built a new road or bridge for 70 years? That's beyond me. But apparently they're helping out with infrastructure reconstruction. I have no damn clue what that would be, and I don't even know if they would know how to do that. So we'll have to see how that turns out. Nevertheless, we did get to hear that Putin has now also started year-round conscription. This picture is very fitting. Putin looking at the meats. It's a story as old as time. Nevertheless, Putin has stated, starting January 1st of 2026, Russians will be drafted into the army all year long with no spring and autumn call-up cycles. He also authorized sending reservists to training camps to guard critical facilities. The state is building up a mobilization reserve because the war requires manpower and volunteers have long run out. Stories about conscripts not being sent to war no longer convince anyone, because forcing an 18-year-old to sign a contract is pretty easy. Russia today, just like in 1612, is defending its sovereignty, Putin said. Thank God he didn't bring up the Pechniks again, and also Rinky-Dink the Wise. And while the regime tightens the screws at home and prepares fresh troops, Putin is once again avoiding personal appearances abroad. He will not attend the G20 summit in South Africa. He's sending Oreshnik instead, and also somehow didn't make it to Pokrovsk. Yada yada. Next, I added that in. Still, conscriptions are now going to be a year-long party. There will no longer be any spring or fall call-ups like there has been over the past of the entirety of the war in Ukraine. They're now going to be doing the conscriptions year-round. Every single day, 365 days a year. So they will now be able to call up the amount of troops that they need whenever they're taking extremely high losses, or expect to take extremely high losses in the future. That also means that the Russian Federation will be able to at least sustain their force and size, and also grow it if they wanted to, as they will not be limiting themselves any longer to a spring and fall call-up for the mobilizations, or the Mobics, as they call them. But, moving on from that, while the Russian Federation is in an incredibly difficult situation, it appears that Poland has put them in a slightly tougher one at that, as Poland has arrested 2 spies today who have been charged with helping and assisting the Russian FSB. The couple, who had refugee status, allegedly collected intelligence on Polish foreign ministry officials, academic exchange programs, and Russian opposition figures. Their trial is set for December 8th, and I'll be honest with y'all folks, considering that the Polish have arrested them on these charges, it's highly likely that they'll be found guilty. In most cases around the world, very few people are ever found not guilty of charges of spying or espionage. Usually it's an open and shut case. Outside of that, and in Belgium, we have also been able to hear that shoot-down orders have now been given to the Belgian forces by the Belgian government. Belgian soldiers have been authorized to shoot down drones flying over military bases. According to experts, they stated that the Belgian army demonstrated a lack of professionalism in handling the recent drone incidents. Troops used ineffective signal jammers, scrambled a helicopter too late to intercept the aircraft, and failed to locate the drone operators. In the end, the drones calmly flew north to the Netherlands, according to the RTL. 3 large drones were spotted over November 1st and 2nd over the Kleine Brogel base in Belgium. This base is a somewhat significant one, and we've talked about this on our last stream on Sunday, but to revisit this for any new viewers who may be here tonight, the Kleine Brogel base is found in the very northern area of Belgium. It's blurred out on the map for security purposes. However, the Kleine Brogel base is not just a base for the Belgian Air Force and its F-16AMs, It is also a base that the United States Air Force uses to house B-61 tactical nuclear bombs, or as they're called in the service, B-61 gravity bombs. These bombs are our first action in a nuclear war in a tactical exchange, and these bombs are, of course, to be highly secured. Drones flying directly over them and the housed facility that they are in is a fairly large security risk, and so the Belgians have now given authorization for drones to be shot down whenever they're seen at any point over a base, especially, obviously, over the gravity bombs that are inside of Kleine Brogel. So it does appear that there will be further actions taken against the drones when they're spotted, and it appears that the time for action literally appeared right after that. As about 8 hours ago, all Belgian airspace had been closed, citing Liège airport spokesperson Christian Delcourt after there were 3 reported drone sightings within the country. You can actually see all the flights being diverted out of the region right here, and it wasn't an incredibly large amount of aircraft. There were 2 Aerologic 777s that were diverted, including an A320, 2 A319s, and another A320. The A320s from Brussels Airlines, the A319 from Brussels Airlines, and another A319 from EasyJet. This seems to suggest that the Belgian authorities have not shot down a drone yet, as we haven't gotten any additional reports that they did shoot a drone down. So either they weren't able to find them or they decided to not give the order to actually shoot them down. We're not really sure which one it was, but still a very interesting development nonetheless. Beyond that,
It just seems unbelievable. It just seems unbelievable at this point that after all these many months of drones showing up around airports, around nuclear sites, around military airfields, that not a single one of them have been shot down by any of the countries that's happened in. It's happened in so many different countries, Germany, Belgium. We've seen them everywhere, and we've seen them in Poland too, and nobody's willing to shoot them down. And it seems like, obviously we saw today, Belgium said they were going to shoot them down, and so far we haven't heard any proof that any were shot down. So it's just wild to me that we've gotten so desensitized to it, and we've also gotten sort of accepting of the idea that none of these countries in NATO are willing to take the big step of actually protecting their airspace. It seems wild, and also after all this time, we still don't have the answer exactly where these drones are even coming from. We still don't even know that.
yeah, I mean, it's really a circus at this point with the drone incursions. The drones have to be shot down. That's just the end of the story. They're causing massive disruptions, massive losses of money, and not only that, they're a massive security risk, just on the basic level of it alone. The NATO has to grow a pair and start shooting these things down. It is a sign of weakness. It is a complete embarrassment, to be honest with y'all, that we're not shooting them down and no one else is shooting them down. There's been drones here in the United States, if y'all don't know, that were flying over bases. Not the ones that were from the tests up in New England near Picatinny. Not those drones. Those were a totally different story. But there have been other drones that have been seen that have been flying over places like Langley, smaller consumer drones, that are not shot down. We don't even know who's flying them. And those are huge security risks. Massive security risks. We have to shoot these things down. They are not allowed to fly in our airspace. Think about it this way, folks. Every single one of these drones, if you want to think about it in a way that actually puts this into perspective, every single one of these drones is rogue. It is like Flight 93 on 9/11. These things are out of control. They can cause untold amounts of damage. We don't know who's flying them. We don't know why they're flying them, and we don't know where they're heading. For all we know, that thing could be going straight into a building and kill 100 people or more than that. These things are a huge risk. Anything that's flying without any sort of government approval is a massive risk. I mean, if one of these things goes into a commercial lane of traffic at an airport and flies through it, and it gets sucked into a turbojet or a turbofan on a jet, and it's a passenger airplane filled with hundreds of people, that could end up possibly killing all of those hundreds of people. It could. These things are huge risks to the public, to the military, to our national security, to our economy. They're a huge risk in every way. People should not be desensitized to these things. They are incredibly dangerous and quite scary, to be entirely honest with y'all, that they are roaming around like this. They have to be dealt with. But beyond that, many people have been talking about the situation in the Russian Federation and also the year-round conscriptions, or as we would like to call it, the unlimited soup and salad that is going on in Russia now for conscriptions. And Matthew, what are people thinking about the unlimited soup and salad option? Are people thinking that that's a pretty good move, or are they thinking that that's not a great move? And what are you thinking about it?
All right, so it looks like now that Russia has approved year-round conscription, because apparently they've run out of volunteers, and is that hard to believe? Not at all, because who'd want to go fight in a meat grinder? Pretty much nobody, unless they're brainwashed to think otherwise. So is this going to cause unrest in Russia? Is it finally going to cause the people to do something about the situation that Putin is forcing them into? And it looks like 48% said yes, Russians will be livid, while 31% said maybe some sporadic unrest is all, and 16% said no, Russia simply doesn't have it in them to cause unrest or stand up for themselves. And largely, I would say that considering the FSB has an iron grip on Russia and nobody's allowed to speak out without severe repercussions, I would say that maybe some sporadic unrest is all we're going to see. We have seen very mild protests in Russia, and I mean very mild, like they're pretty much non-existent. So I'm with the 31%. I think some sporadic unrest is expected, but don't expect anything more than that. It's probably going to be very minor, if anything at all. So, Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to be honest. I would assume with Matthew that there's probably going to be some sporadic unrest, but probably nothing too major. We all have to remember, folks, the Russian public is beat down to hell historically. Over about 1,000 years, the Russian government, in some varying form, has had its thumb down on the people for 1,000 years. They're used to it. The government can crap on them, do whatever. They're not really going to care, and there's not really a lot that they're going to do about it. So I'd have to be entirely honest with y'all. I just don't really think much is going to come out of it, rather than maybe a couple of demonstrations here and there, if even that happens, and then they'll get beat up by the cops, and then they'll all go home, and then the ringleaders will be arrested and put in prison. So I don't really think much will come of it, to be entirely honest with y'all. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. And with that, it is time for us to move on through the rest of our news. And we were also able to hear in Lithuania today that Rheinmettal is now going to be opening up a brand new munitions plant. This is going to be great. According to what we've been able to hear, Europe's largest defense contractor, Rheinmettal, which is a great one, by the way, has laid the foundation stone for a plant in Baisugala, Lithuania, which will produce 155mm artillery shells, NATO's caliber of choice. The facility is set to launch in mid-2026 in next year. The first phase includes the production of 35,000 shells, ramping up to as many as 100,000 per year in this one factory by 2027. This is the biggest defense investment in Lithuania's history and a direct move to expand manufacturing capacity on NATO's eastern flank. The Rheinmetall CEO Armin Paperger called the project an important signal for Russia, showing that the alliance can respond quickly. And to be honest with y'all, putting up a munitions plan in 6 months is not light work. That's actually very fast. But we can see the ceremony here with them throwing the dirt ceremonially.
That's a real good video there, but I'll probably stop it right there.
Oh yeah. But still, great to see and good to know that the Lithuanians are now going to have themselves a nice little munitions plant. And I wish I knew where the town was. It's a smaller town in Lithuania. I just put this marker near Kaunas, but it is somewhere within Lithuania. You know, just put a little marker on the map, and eventually we'll find it. But moving on from that and out of that area, it is time for us to move on and down into Crimea, because we were able to see today a little unfortunate incident for the Russians in the fact that a small anti-submarine ship caught on fire.
Oh, the dogs are out. Somebody let the dogs loose on top of that.
Man, who let the dogs out, man? And they let them dogs out. Let me go pull up a Project 1124 for y'all. Project 1124. The Grisha class. Man, I think one of Mr. Corgi's nicknames is Grishak. It has no relation to this at all. But this is the boat that caught on fire today.
Oh wow, look at that. That's a Soviet Grishak class right there. I tell you what, that's a doozy. Look at that.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. Man, these things have been in service since the 60s.
Ugh, man. I tell you what, that was a good year.
Man, I don't think so. Like, honestly, man, like, I don't know. Let's see here. Oh, here's a picture of one in modern day service. Man, look at the diesel exhaust fumes coming out of the side of that thing. Even the filters on the ships aren't replaced. How in the world does that even happen?
Honestly, I don't even know, man. I'll tell you what, it's really got that old style coal going on. This might be that Steamboat Willie ship that person was talking about earlier when they were saying that was the aircraft carrier. This might be it.
Man, I think this might be it, man. This is that oil-fired aircraft carrier they were talking about. But beyond that, I got to be honest with y'all. It's not really a huge loss for them because anti-submarine ships or boats, if you want to call this more so a boat. What submarines are the Russians even hunting down in Ukraine? None. So is it really a loss for them? Not really, but it's still great to know that it caught on fire and it apparently sank from what we know. So that was good, and a standalone sort of a thing. Also, here was one that was in the Ukrainian Navy in 2013.
I'm not gonna lie, that paint job that they've done to kind of like give it some sort of camouflage makes it look like it's gotten cracked in half and it's sinking.
Yeah, I know. I don't like that one, honestly. It's not good looking.
I think it's dragging ass. I mean, look at that. It's like the whole ship is like leaned back into the water or something. It's like it's really dragging.
Yeah, funnily enough, they're all kind of designed like that. That's like the hull shape.
That's weird. It looks like it's broken.
Yeah, I don't like them, really. I really don't like any Russian design of mostly anything. I mean, they all look terrible in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
I mean, I don't like it at all. Get it away from me! But anyways, moving on out of that clip in Sevastopol, and out of Crimea, actually, as a matter of fact, it's time for us to move back into Russia. At Nizhny Novgorod today, at Kosovo, we got to see a giant refinery was hit and blown up again. From what we know, 50 Bulber and FP-1 drones were used in this strike, which was being hit in the middle of repairs from the last strike. The refinery did burn to the ground, so we're waiting to see what the new damage looks like, but I'll show you all the state of the refinery before the attack that happened today in this clip. We're going to be muting the Barbie girl music that this guy's listening to. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. But beyond that, he's driving through. You can see some gas venting off of one of the buildings there that was damaged. Center screen. Then you can look over here and see more gas that's venting off of other damaged buildings.
That's a lot of gas venting out right there. It's a lot.
That's a lot. I've got to be honest with you. The Russians, they weep. He said, I'll pick up the boats right now. And yes, we're going to the plant.
Also, man, I don't know what the hell is going on outside my new HQ, but it sounds like someone's getting in a scrap or a brawl or something out there. I'm hearing some ruckus going on.
Oh, man, a ruckus? Well,
I
don't
think
sit
somebody's about to
around.
start slinging
Get in
hands
it.
out here or something. I mean, usually when you hear a ruckus like that, usually somebody's about to start throwing fists or something. If that's having a good time, that's some interesting. I don't know what's going on out there. Sounds like a ruckus.
Man, give us a little bit of a playthrough. What's going on out there?
I heard someone just yell out a minute ago. It sounded like someone was. It sounded like fighting words to me, and then somebody else like so did decide. I can make out what they were saying back to him, but I'm trying to get a listen right now.
All right, folks, I'm going to give him a little quiet so he can listen in.
I don't hear anything now. So either someone got laid out cold, or either they walked off. One or the other.
Someone just got rinsed. Someone just got rinsed out there. But beyond that, man, I got to be honest with you, man. These Salt Lake City people, I mean, they might not be as happy as we thought they were.
I'll tell you what, somebody's getting in a scrap. They said 1 wife, 2 wife, 3 wife, 4 wife. That's it. Not 4. Not 4, damn it.
Man, man, I tell you, oh man, I'm telling you. But still, that's the end of that clip right there. Still showing you all the damage that the refinery had before it was hit again today and pretty much burned to the ground. So, moving on to Nizhny Novgorod, let me move you all to Sterletomac, where we also saw a very similar thing happen to the petrochemical plant. Y'all want to see what happens to the petrochemical plant? It explodes like the petrodollar. Take a look. Oh. Wow, that was right in line with my cough.
Damn.
And then these two guys are like, "What the hell?" Like,
he got out like, I think the food's ready. Get it out of the oven, please.
Man, he got out like, "Oh, it's just supper time already." Man, like, whoa, I'm so hungry. Also, here's the aftermath.
It's like a runaway diesel.
Man, I'll be honest with you, man. Kind of does sound like a runaway diesel out there. But the Ukrainians did land some pretty big hits overnight. In the meantime, a new Ukrainian drone attack started just a few hours before we went live on air, as y'all can all see here. And we also got to see what was going on in the skies over Oriel. Take a little look. Oh. Little, little explosion over there.
Also, by the way, I'm getting a kick out of what people are saying in the chat here. Just saying, are you sure you guys aren't still in Memphis or something? We're definitely not in Memphis. You wouldn't hear anything if you were in Memphis and a fight broke out. You'd simply hear, you'd probably maybe hear one person yell, then you'd probably hear like gunfire in the distance or something. That's how it usually goes down there. Usually the fists aren't the mode of fighting. It's usually guns or something like that.
Man, did you hear about that rapper that was just killed in Memphis like over the weekend?
Oh no, I don't keep up with that rapper
Oh,
beef.
I saw it. I saw it for some reason on my Instagram feed, and it was a video, like a security cam video of this like shooting that happened on this guy. He was in his car, and this other car just drove by, man. And there was like 4 Glocks that came out of the side. I guess all of them had switches on them because they unloaded into that car like it was Tommy guns. It was just the craziest thing. And I was like, oh, yeah, like we drove right through there. It was like a street that I almost recognized. I was like, that looks a lot like a street that we were down for a minute. And
Probably was.
yeah, probably was, honestly. Man, crazy enough, come to think of it, man. Oh, well, no, we weren't down there during that weekend. That was this weekend. Yeah, we weren't down there. We were far away at that point. But anyways, y'all get to see that one explosion in Oriole. Let's take a look at another. Oh.
Oriole really getting hit.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. Oriole is getting hit like an Oreo. I gotta tell you, goodness, take a look at this. I don't even know how in the world that made sense. I mean, nobody hits an Oreo cookie, so it's like I was just trying to make it rhyme. Oh.
Oh. Damn, son. There's that car alarm that's always going off. Literally the same car alarm every time. That must be like whoever came up with that car alarm must be a mega millionaire, big bucks at this point.
Man, honestly, there's that stupid slide whistle. But that's the end of that clip. But still giving y'all a little bit of a taste of Oriole. Do y'all like Oriole? I don't know. Let me know in the chat. Give me a 1 out of 10 on the whole Oriole thing. Maybe it's a competitor to Oreos. I have no clue. But moving on from that and on into the Ukrainian front lines, we also get to see the Ukrainians landing some little hits on some Russian border checkpoints. We're going to mute that now. That sounded copyright as hell. I don't know what song that was, but it sounded copyright. So we're going to mute it and watch the Ukrainians hit these border outposts.
If you can even call these border outposts, it looks like it's made of sticks. Like something that Wolf could have blown down if he wanted to try hard enough.
My house is made of sticks. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow to your house down.
That Wolf was going around blowing everybody's houses down.
Man, hold up, man. Let me do it right. I'll huff, and I'll puff, and I'll blow.
Oh, man. I wasn't expecting that.
Oh, man. Bro, no one's expecting a hot dog, man. Hush, hush, hush. Here comes the hot dog man. Oh, man.
Oh, boy. I tell you what.
Oh, man.
Hot dog man. He could probably blow down the brick house if he really wanted to.
Man. Oh, man. I'm telling you, man. Hot dog man, he doesn't hot dog man, he doesn't live in a brick house, but something else is bricked.
I don't know about that. That's wild right there.
I don't know.
Wild.
I don't know about. Hey, yo, man,
Uncouth.
listen. Let me. Well, if we want uncouth, let me hit a little sleevo right here. I was shot in the back of a cab in '92. But anyways, moving on from that and on down into the location unknowns, we also got to see the aftermath of a Ukrainian missile attack on a Russian position. Take a look at this, folks. Take a little look.
Вот так это все происходит. Что? Там какие бревна валяются после прилетов. Вот прилет кассетного снаряда.
Oh, look, there was a cluster.
He's really impressed by the shipping pallet that's been demolished.
Man, I gotta be honest with you, man. This guy, he's impressed by many things.
Что осталось?
You can tell the Russians were here because of all the trash everywhere. What the hell is that? Do you see that figure right there? What the hell is that?
Осталось.
Is that a person?
That?
Yeah, what is that?
Oh, that's Glebus. Don't you know Glebus?
Now I don't know what the hell that is. What is that, a demon?
Yeah, it's Glebus the demon. Like, he just hangs
Man,
out
that's
around
creepy.
the
What
place.
the hell? What, for real, what is that?
I don't know, really. I'm going to keep playing the video. Maybe you'll get close to it. Oh, it's like a
Oh, it's a
piece of
jacket?
trash or something, yeah.
All right. Dang, man, that was a sketchy look right there. That was like damn Slender Man or something sitting right there. That was sketchy.
Honestly, man, Glebus the demon is scary. Like, he really is.
Вот был капонир, блиндаж.
Also, what the hell was their outpost made out of? Sheets of 10? Like, there's nothing else here but giant sheets of 10.
Yeah, really. I'll tell you what.
Опорник.
Also, I see some people like, that was the most amazing laugh ever. I will never sound like that again. It only sounded like that because I was sick. So moving on from that and on to the next clip, we also got to see these Russian soldiers that had been taken prisoner by the Ukrainians, and they didn't even know yet until they were told. So here it is.
Вы вообще понимаете, куда вы попали?
Oh, hold up. Sorry,
The
everyone.
devil's back.
It's the devil. Let me lower that down so that way they can read it for y'all.
Do you understand why you ended up here? What do you mean where we ended up? We ended up with you guys. Who are our guys? Our allies. Your allies? What unit are you from? From 135. 135, pass along greetings to your unit 135 from captivity.
Is that guy right there on the right related to Katarov by chance?
I need a cigarette, Don, and a ham and cheese sandwich, Don.
Could you lend me a ham and cheese and ham and cheddar sandwich? You know, the type that you get from the public school cafeteria. I'll take two.
It has to be moldy, Don. It adds a flavor, Don.
Pass along greetings. This can't be. Our commander told us that we need to go in and take this position. We came here and is this. We haven't slept for 3 days. We came to rest and this happened. Well, this is how you get to sleep. Welcome to Ukraine. Is it possible? Where to? Where to? Where are ammo and rifles? You've been captured. Wake up.
Oh, and then they look at each other like, captured? Like, what? Oh my
They
god.
really did, man. They looked at each other like, captured? Is that what happened?
Brother literally got their hands bound and they're sitting on the floor, and then it just finally hits them. Captured? What? What are you? Holy Jeebus, Batman. We're captured. It's like, what are y'all? These guys are stupid. Now, these guys are stupid. Now, then he just looks to the floor. Are you serious? Bro, oh my god.
Man, this is a joke right here. A complete joke. Are they actually, like, mystified about that?
Apparently. And then the guy's like, no, I'm not joking. And now that guy's just...
He hung his head down in disappointment. This was really setting in for this guy.
Man, bro, he put his head down and he said, hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again.
Are you really telling me that I'm actually captured? Oh, man. This is awful.
Bro, look, man, watch this, man. Watch. He said, captured. Here we go. You've been captured. Wake up. They both go, captured. And then that guy goes, huh?
This is criminal. This has to be criminal. You know, there's actually a law in the United States. If someone, is it IQ or is it the ASVAB score? If it's like a certain level, you can't get put in the military. Which one is it?
It's the ASVAB.
Yeah, it's like there's like a little threshold or something. If you get like a score low enough, you can't get in the military. Like, I think these guys right here might have been below the score level for whatever Russia's criteria is for putting these people in the military, because I mean, these guys had to be told that they were captured, and then it just set in after they were already handcuffed. I mean, this is pretty rough.
Bro, this guy went, captured. Oh, man. Oh, my God. Man, you can't make that up. That clip is priceless. Also, we got to see the Russians testing out their brand new Izhevsk MP-153. The MP-153 is a domestically made Russian shotgun. A semi-automatic, that is. Let me show y'all a picture of it. It's kind of like a ripoff of a Benelli, in a way. Really, any insert kind of like generic semi-automatic shotgun. That's basically what the MP153 is. You could buy them here in America under the brand Baikal, which is the brand that Izhvesk worked under here in America until it was banned. But let's take a look at the quality of the MP153 from Izhvesk.
Давай.
Oh, that, something seems to happen. Let's watch that again.
What happened?
Well, there's smoke venting from the side of the barrel right there, and that doesn't really seem to be normal.
I thought that was normal for the Russian weapons.
No, the smoke's supposed to come out of the front, out of the hole, like out of what's called the barrel, but that's coming out of the side. I don't think that's right.
Попал? Нихуя. Разъебал его?
Нихуя
Oh,
Oh my god! Oh my god, the front came apart! The front of the barrel is literally come apart.
honestly, man, I'm in disbelief right now about two different things. Number one, the barrel. Number two, that cameraman like literally got flagged like the worst flagging I've ever seen in my life with this broken like half-ass gun right here. Like this guy literally turned around and aimed at it for like a solid 5 seconds, and the cameraman barely reacted.
Разъебал его? Нихуя себе!
Oh my god, man, these Russians, I tell you. Oh whoa,
Man.
whoa.
I'm dying over here. I'm literally dying. I'm dying like Sliwa in the back of that yellow cab in 92. But holy moly.
Как так? Ебать!
This guy's lost it. This guy has actually lost it.
Man, he's laughing because he's in disbelief. He's like, they expect us to go into battle with this piece of Acme junk off the Roadrunner cartoon. It's like, what the hell are we holding? He sounds crazy. He sounds like the Joker.
Oh my god. Oh my god, man.
Ты прикинь, ебать. Да ну нахуй.
Wait a minute.
Нахуй охота, ебать.
That's the sight. That's the bead. Oh my god, that is the bead. So, wait a minute. The top rail, the guide rail, it stayed on, but it warped from the pressure. So the bead, which is the only, by the way, if y'all haven't shot a shotgun before, unlike a normal gun, which has a front post and a rear post, or like a front sight and a rear sight, and you line those two up together to get a shot, with a shotgun, there is no rear sight post. There's only a front sight post, which is this little brass bead that is sitting perfectly on the guide rail. And that's what this is. And so what happened is that when the barrel exploded, the guide rail just peeled back, but the bead stayed on. So technically, you could still aim this thing, although you would never hit anything with it, because you're aiming off of that right there. But
Ебаная. А чё,
Are you
такое
still
плохо
laughing
было
at
или
it?
чё? Не знаю, нахуй. Ебать.
Oh.
Ваши комментарии по этому поводу.
Да вообще нехуй сказать, блядь.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, try to just fix the metal with your hand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Я, говорит, почищу, ебать.
This guy comes from a long line of blacksmiths. They used to use their bare hands to like curl the
Буду,
metal.
говорит, дрон охуенствовать.
Прикинь,
Это второй выстрел, нахуй, твой?
первый, блядь.
Oh, look, he's
первый
about to
по банке
execute his
выстрелил.
comrade.
Я имею в виду вообще.
Ебать, как я теперь нахуй буду вообще побеждать.
These chuckling fools. Uh-oh.
oh, he's gonna do it again?
That's pretty crazy. Oh, damn. It still works. I'm shocked.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Huh.
Is he even hitting anything?
I'm not really sure what the hell he's aiming at this point. He's
Yeah,
executing a
fuck you,
marmot
shit.
that witnesses a failure in the distance. He can't have any witnesses.
Man, probably.
Ебануться. Надо будет что, обрезать его, да?
I wouldn't want to be within like 100 yards of this guy with this gun. Like, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near this guy. His gun safety. Oh, look, Akhmat.
Oh
Look at
my
that. Do you
god,
see
it's
that?
Akhmat. No way.
Oh my god, that explains everything.
The greatest plot twist of the century. We thought that we thought this whole thing couldn't get worse. The whole thing happened with Akhmat. So it's just It's Akhmat. That's the only way we can explain
It makes
this.
sense though. Like that was the missing piece of the puzzle right there. I was really wondering like who the hell really are these guys? That answered the question. That explains the whole ordeal.
Oh my god, dude. Who would have ever thought, man, that the dumbest video we've seen tonight came from Akhmat, man? Who would have thought, man, that it was Akhmat? This is the first time we've seen them on film in like 4 months. And the first time we've seen them on film for 4 months, they Elmer Fudd a shotgun, and then they flag each other for a good minute. And it's Akhmat of all people.
You know what? These were the same guys right here that happened to be on lunch break when
When the
Russia
Ukrainians
got
invaded Kursk.
Yeah. Remember, they were eating a ham and cheddar sandwich, and they all were on lunch break when Russia got invaded by Ukraine, and they said, "Oh, we were busy. We were out for lunch. That's why we got caught off guard." Oh man, these guys.
Oh my god. Dude, look at their crappy little AK. Oh my god, it doesn't even have a muzzle brake. How the hell do you lose the muzzle brake? It's literally like it's clipped on. Like, let me go show you all that. This is insane. So AK-74. So that on the ground is an AK-74. That gun right there. It's a 5.45. So normally they have this thing attached to the front right here. That's the muzzle brake, and that's actually detachable. You can actually attach other muzzle brakes up there. There's this little let me AK-74 without muzzle brake. Let's see here. Here we go. Here we go. This is what I'm trying to show y'all. So this guy's doesn't have his muzzle brake, and I don't know how you lose it. And also, I don't know why you'd remove it either, because I removed mine before and shot it, and it climbs a little bit more. The muzzle brake is literally designed on these to completely mitigate muzzle brake. I mean, I will give the AK-74 credit. That thing has absolutely no climb on it whatsoever if you shoot it quickly. It's a very stable gun. But this stupid guy has lost his. It's just gone. Like, it's just straight up chrome up there. And I'm like, how the hell do you lose that? Because that's what it looks like, and that's what he's got. There's no muzzle brake on his AK. So not only has he broken his shotgun, but he doesn't even have a muzzle brake on his own AK. So this guy is just he's just screwed in multiple different ways. Really stupid guy.
Also, by the way, in case some people in the chat are unfamiliar, the Akhmat is the Chechen special forces, basically. This is supposedly one of the elite units of the Chechen military. So this is their best guys. So you see what their best guys are capable of and also what their weapons look like. So that kind of tells you pretty much everything you need to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, we got to see the Russian casualty report for the day. And one Bobcat. Oh,
hey, look at that. They got a Bobcat again. I'll tell you what, thank you so much for the Bobcat. I'll take it and I'll double it, give it to the next person. But tell us more.
Man, I got to tell you, it was a good day today. 425 drones is the 14th highest daily loss, according to Miss DC, keeper of the records. Dropping troops, AFV, and vehicle losses. But in the meantime, we did get to see that 840 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 1 APC, 93 supply trucks, 5 main battle tanks, 42 artillery pieces, 425 drones, 1 MLRS, and 1 Bobcat skid steer. All in all, a very good day, considering that the Bobcat was lost. Moving on from that and on into the front lines in Ukraine, we got to see in the Lehman direction, the Ukrainians hitting and taking out Russian forces with their fiber optic drones from the Signum unit.
The Sigma male unit.
Oh my god, bro. They hit him with like a landmine.
Man, mind my land.
Man, more like mind the gap.
Oh,
Oh, what's this? What are they about to hit here? Oh, a guy in an ATV.
Oh wow, that thing really went up in like a mini atomic blast right there. That was dramatic.
Bro, that thing went up like a mini nuke. It's like, whoa. It's like, I didn't expect that. But moving on from that clip and on down the line to the area of Zolotarivka, we also get to see the Ukrainians destroying this BM-21 Grad that was inside of this box. We see them flying on around, carefully. And, oh, there was the Grad, and they got it. That thing's cooking. Ain't nothing like Mama's cooking. And this ain't Mama's cooking, so there's something better than this. Wow, this whole town like caught on fire after that grab blew up. And now they're going to try and go for it again here. And also, Matthew, I don't know how in the world we're even going so over time. Actually, I was trying to figure that out myself quietly over here. I was like, how in the world are we already like 2 hours in? But moving on from that and down into Touretsk, we also get to see the Ukrainians on combat patrols in the area as a part of the national police. We're going to have to mute that for copyright reasons, but when you see them moving in a little cart filled with goodies and juices.
Oh, well, they had some cola with them too. Maybe great value cola. I don't know if it was name brand or not. You gotta wait until you become a manager or corporate to get Coke.
Man, also, why are we going so over time? Like, actually, that's a great question. When in the world did all the time go by?
I don't know.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, man, because I'm thinking about the show and I'm like, I don't really think we spent like a lot of additional time on really anything tonight that I can think of, at least. I don't even know how in the world the news is going on this long right now, folks. I'm so sorry about this, but I was sitting here for a minute after we reached about 9:40, and I was like, how in the world is the show going on still? Like, we still got a lot to go. And I was sitting here quietly thinking this, and Matthew just texted me that question. He's like, how in the world is the show going on so long? And I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to figure that out myself right now. So, you know, I don't know, but I hope y'all are enjoying it. This is like a lengthened news show tonight. We see them getting a wounded Ukrainian soldier out of there.
That sounded kind of wet.
Oh yeah, it was. Like it was.
Oh, damn.
Man, I'm dealing with like a bronchitis like cough at this point. It's not great. But we could see them loading additional folks into the back of this truck. And then
Also, by the way, fun fact: when we moved, my old microphone post got broken in the move, so I was having to like balance my microphone to the last time we were on the air, and it wasn't working too well. So I got my new boom arm today, and this thing like keeps drooping down like as the minutes go by. Like I'll look back over, and all of a sudden the mic's lower, and now it's all the way down to my hand on the desk. I'm like, how the hell does this thing keep going lower and lower like every like couple of minutes? It's like the droopy mic stand. It's like, what the hell is this, like a gag gift or something like that? What is this?
Man, dude, my old microphone stand, actually not the old one, the current one I have, it does that. Well, it used to do that, but I just tightened it up hard enough that it never does anymore. So that was my trick to it. I don't know if you can do yours like that because yours sounded fairly fragile, so I don't know if that would work. But we did get to see Zelensky also handing out awards at Dobropilia to the Ukrainian soldiers in the area.
It's always good to see Zelensky on the front lines. You'll never see Putin going out there on the front lines. Putin won't even send his doubles out there.
No, he won't, actually. We see him continuing to speak to the soldiers, also with Sersky present. And that's the end of the clip, but still great to see. Moving on from that and inside Pokrovsk, we also get to see the Ukrainian Special Forces unit Timur conducting operations, clearing out some buildings. We can see them in the operations room coordinating with the troops on the ground as they move in their helicopters and armored cars. Also see them landing airstrikes on Russian positions. Oh, that was the Blackhawks, Matthew. That was the Blackhawks of the GRU we saw on Sunday.
Really?
Yeah, look at that.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Oh, that is so cool.
They got the Star Wars tracers flying across the battlefield, too.
Dang, and they started wiping Russians out. Wow, they even had a T-80 BVM captured one come in to help assist.
They're really laying down the law on them.
Oh man, they laying down the law. I mean, they really are, no joke. I mean, they're going to work. Work, 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 work. And they're just laying it down. This is crazy, folks, honestly. We can also see them riding away in a pickup, staying down in the basement, firing the T-80BVM, staying down in the basement, firing into the building, firing into the building again, getting them with the old razzle-dazzle. Moving on down the way, once again through the basement. The fire is continuing to burn. Burning and churning, they do. They do. They're doing a great job. An incredible job in Pokrovsk. We can see them continuing to slam the Russian forces, and it appears that the Special Forces operations within the area were quite successful. But, moving on from this clip, as the Blackhawks fly off into the sunset, quite literally, it is time for us to move on out of the Pokrovsk area, as we will be cutting the other two clips short, as they generally just showed the fighting in Pokrovsk, similar to the ones we just saw in the prior clips. But if you would like to see them, the link is in the description below for y'all to be able to access them. So, if you do want to see them, there is the ability to. Link in the description below. But with that, folks, we're going to be moving on up to Kyiv. There is a speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky for today. However, we thought we would do something special for all of y'all, as we did promise y'all before we left a special video of the Enforcer road trip and everything that was involved in it to get to Enforcer HQ 3.0 here in Salt Lake City. And for that reason, tonight, we are actually going to be giving y'all access to a special Patreon release that was made on Patreon just today. Y'all will not have to go to Patreon and have to become a paying member to watch this one, as we're going to be showing it to y'all right here in the stay of President Zelensky's speech. And so, without further ado, folks, here is the trip to Utah. And let me make sure that we get this in full screen. And without further ado, folks, here is the trip. Trip!
So this is how we started the trip, was by packing up our Penske truck full of our storage locker stuff, and then we drove it back over to the house to pack up even more over there.
Of how I look, because I look pretty rough, but this is how we have our stuff packed up in a nice big Penske truck right here. So I'm here in my garage with my, not Lamborghini, with my storage stuff, and honestly I look wrecked because I feel wrecked. Honestly, we are like on day 3 of heavy packing, so quite wild.
And in the midst of the delirium, we said to hell with OPSEC. Let's show everybody what our old HQ looks like.
So this is where we live. This is Enforcer HQ 2.0 or 3.0, I can't remember, but this is it. Right back behind me, by the way. And also, forgive me for if I'm slurring my speech here. I'm not drunk. It's just that I'm operating off of like 3 hours of sleep for the second or third day in a row. So back behind us right here, this was the main thing we were keeping OPSEC for, was this place right here.
Hey, how are y'all doing? How y'all doing? It's the Enforcer here, and we're moving out to Salt Lake City.
This was it. So on to the next step. Here at a place called Wagon Hound. It's a rest area in Wyoming, but as you see, we are in the mountainous region now, and it is windy as hell out here, and there's actually a wind advisory route, and apparently if you drive a big truck with a high-profile van in the back of it, or a trailer or something like that, you can flip over. So it says extreme wind warning out here, so that is interesting. We're going to see if we can survive that situation, but this is very nice out here in Wyoming. Also, it's not as cool as I thought it was going to be either, but pretty nice out here.
So then we stopped at Sinclair because we saw a huge green dinosaur on the side of the road and a huge refinery in the distance, and we had to see what that was all about.
Alright, so we stopped in Sinclair. You might notice there's a little thing back there. It's the company town Sinclair, according to Andrew. They have the dinosaur right here. That's the dinosaur, right? Why is its tail strapped down? I mean, is anybody not question why this thing's tail strapped down? I mean, was it come alive at night?
I mean, what is it, enslaved or something like that? I'm not really.
And then we set off for the final leg of the trip, and man, was it absolutely beautiful out there.
So as you can tell, I'm still in the car, and we are now about to cross into Utah almost. We're getting close to that. So we're currently in the very western part of Wyoming, and as you can see out the window, we are definitely in Wyoming, as it looks like. Big old mountains. This is the Utah Welcome Center. Here's the enforcer.
You know I had to be here. There's trains here. Don't you think this is cool? We like ran several hundred feet up this hill to see that train.
There's the train going away right there.
We're both struggling, honestly.
But this is pretty neat though. There's the Welcome Center down there. This is the first thing we stopped at in Utah, just past the state line a minute ago, so pretty cool.
And then we got into Salt Lake City, and of course the first thing Andrew had to do was go find a train and ride it immediately, because that's what you have to do when you arrive somewhere new.
So we're out here on the front runner platform out here, waiting to check this out. Andrew insisted after we drove for another 10 hours, we had to get on this train the same day.
We had to. I mean, do you think this would be an enforcer experience without the trains? We have to have the trains. I mean, you just got to have them. It's something you have to do.
So we're on the train now after driving for a long, long time. Honestly, though, I gotta say, I'm not just saying this just to say it, but Salt Lake City is incredibly nice. This place is so clean and so nice. Like you can see, look at the platform. I mean, this place is spectacular. It's like almost European, so very cool.
But with that, folks, that actually rounds out the trip, so hopefully you enjoyed the video and got a glimpse of what it was like to travel across the country about 2,000 miles from Alabama to Utah, and now Utah is the proud home of the Enforcer HQ 3 or 4.0. I still don't have the numbers straight, but thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in the next one.
Honestly, man, like that little part of me almost hitting the bird, the roadkill in the street. I'm not gonna lie, that scared the crap out of me in person, because I didn't see that roadkill, and I was trying to get a quick little video of the truck going down the street. That bird nearly took me out. Like whatever the hell that was, I couldn't even tell what it was. It was like I couldn't tell if it was like it didn't look like an eagle, but it was a big bird, whatever it was, and it was done for. That thing was cooked, and I swerved around it. But also that look, you'd like turn around and look out the window to see the car swerving around back there. Man, that killed me. Honestly, I had to zoom in on that.
Dude, I turned around because I saw it coming from like a mile away because I was so high up in the truck, and I was like, dude, I hope he sees it. I hope he sees it, because we can't talk to each other, folks, when we were on that trip, because I would have to go out of my way and do this crazy thing to grab my phone because it was so far out of reach, and then go through my contacts to find him and call him. And by then I was like, he's going to hit this thing by then, so I can't even call him. So I was just thinking, I was like, please look away from the camera. Look away from the camera. You're about to hit this giant carcass. It was a deer, by the way, that had been splattered. Yeah, it was a whole deer carcass. It was like the whole rib cage that was on the road. Like I think the vultures had eaten everything else. But I was like, oh, damn, I hope he sees it. And right at the last minute, folks, he swerved right out of the way. And I'm so happy you got that on film, because I would literally track the carcass with my head until it went behind the truck. And that's why y'all saw me looking back out the window, because I was waiting for him to hit that thing and go off road and crash. I was like, there's no way I can call him quick enough either to tell him about this thing.
Yeah. Honestly, though, I'm glad y'all liked the video, because I'll be honest with you, I tried to film as much of it as I could, because I made a promise to everybody here on the channel that I was going to film it. So I filmed as much as possible. I'll be honest with y'all, though, I'm not just saying it to say it. I look very rough in that video. Also, by the way, usually I'm clean shaven. I usually like put a lot of work into, you know, looking right and stuff like that. I look like I've lived out in the woods or something like that for like a few weeks or something in this video. Like I've got a beard. I usually don't have a beard. And also I'm wearing a hat because, you know, I'm literally
literally barely getting any sleep. So some people were saying, "Wow, Matt looks different." I honestly do look a lot different there. I was really actually wrecked. But we were operating on very little sleep, very little anything. So we were going hard, like pedal to the metal. We made that trip in record time with a Penske truck going 55 miles an hour across the country. It was a doozy. And also that part about the wind, that was really actually sketchy too. Like at one point I thought the truck was going to go probably over, but thankfully it didn't.
Man, honestly, man, I wish we had gotten a clip of the Penske when it almost flipped over and it like caught air and it almost went sideways all the way. I wish you had caught that because that was insane. That was scary, folks, like extra scary. Because there was nothing we could do. I mean, we had to go down Interstate 80. We just had to battle it out. But unfortunately, y'all didn't really get to hear a lot or see a lot from me because I was driving the truck the whole time. And y'all can tell I was a master at driving that truck. I mean, look at how smooth that thing was. That thing didn't move in the lane at all.
Also, by the way, just to let y'all know, the sensor box that keeps popping up on the back of the Penske and stuff, I had to blur our cars out just because we don't want people knowing what cars we drive. So that way, if someone's like a lunatic trying to hunt us down or something, they won't know and be able to recognize our car sitting out front of our place. So that's why I did that. Also, you'll notice me filming in the car as well, in my car. I actually had to blur out the entire background, the window, and everything because we don't want anybody being able to recognize what we're driving just for OPSEC reasons.
Yeah, that was a big thing is that we don't really want anyone to know what we drive, because that can bring a whole bunch of torture in itself. So we just completely removed that from the whole deal. But that thing was.
Someone said, Butchie said, towing that black cube must have been a nightmare. I know we were hauling a UFO out to Area 51. That was our mission. We were hauling that thing straight out there so that way they could work on the nanobots with it.
Also, man, why the hell did the shots look like something straight out of Grand Tour in this video?
That's the way I tried to film it. I waited until this time of the day, which is known as golden hour pretty much. It was a little cloudy, so it didn't quite come out the way I wanted it to, but it still had the golden hour look to it. So that's what I was kind of going for that look.
Man, honestly, man, it was a pretty cool look. But I gotta say, folks, that the whole trip, man, my hair was rough in so many of them because we were getting up and I would smack a comb over my hair like once and then the wind would get it in the truck because I have to another thing I forgot to tell y'all about, the Penske truck's air conditioner never worked. So let me show y'all that again here. This Penske truck's cab, the wind never worked in it. So, well, the air never worked in it. So what I'd have to do is what I was doing right there. I just have to roll the window down. And so, like, my hair was never normal looking at all during this whole trip in every single shot because my wind was getting blasted all day by my hair was getting blasted all day by the wind. So I would look terrible every time I got out of that truck. And I was getting sunburnt a little bit too, by the end of the trip. From the sun coming through the open, side window that was no longer a window. It was just an open hole. So I got to be honest with y'all. I hated that damn Penske truck so much. I hated it a lot. I would say Penske trucks suck. If I had to move again, I would get a Penske truck because it didn't break down. But I can tell y'all folks, I never want to drive one again. I can say that. But let's see here. Let me mute that. How in the world do we mute it? Here we go. So. Yeah, I mean, that was rough. Honestly, man, it didn't look that rough from the outside, but from the inside, it was hell. It was truly hell.
It looked like smooth sailing from the outside of it. Although it was pretty loud, though. I put music over the video, obviously, but it was pretty loud, though. Like I can imagine that cab was probably torture to be in there for too long.
Yeah, see, it was a deer.
Oh, I said possibly a bird. At least I said possibly. I hedged it a little bit, so in case I was wrong, I wouldn't be totally wrong.
Man, right, but possibly a bird. It was a freaking deer. Like, bro, dude thought it was a road runner out here on the interstate. But also, man, brother, there I was, man. I was like, did he survive? I was like, did he live or did he die? Man, just honestly, oh man. Dude, that whole road trip was ridiculous, man, honestly. And we didn't even get to film, man, I wish we had filmed the part where we got stuck in Memphis and Gangland. That would have been, that was truly Grand Tour material right there.
Yeah, I couldn't even film that one, honestly. I was in disbelief because when I pulled over to let you catch up, and I pulled over and saw the working women of the night and things like that, literally walking right in front of my car. I was just sitting, and we were sitting in a bad side of town, so I was sitting there just kind of like waiting for you to come along in the truck. And I remember sitting there like, dang, there's a pimp down the street. There's some working women right here. There might be like a gang like hanging out on the other side of the road. I'm like, I don't know what I'm sitting in right here. I'm just going to like try to like wait this out and hopefully nothing happens before the truck gets down here. At one point, I was like, should I just drive on and let him catch up later? But I was like, hell, I'm not moving. I'm going to sit here. So I just waited the whole time. But that was a sketchy area, honestly. We went through the really bad part of Memphis.
Oh, it was bad. And then we went through St. Louis, and St. Louis was no better. Even on on Interstate 270, which is what we went around on, that was still rough. But I wish we really caught a lot of film in those areas, and also the forest, the Mark Twain forest through here. Let me see if I can show you what that kind of looked like. Yeah, it looked like this through there. This was actually a pretty nice looking spot, honestly. I didn't think it was too bad, but I wish we had gotten some film of this area of the early part of the trip, but we were very exhausted, folks, and mentally wired during this part of the trip, pretty much all the way out to North Platte. So really the footage picked up once we made it past North Platte. That's really where everything started. But anyways, with that, I hope y'all enjoyed that video in stay of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the stream where we get to talk to each and every one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks, what a time that will be. We get to talk about literally anything and everything y'all want to talk about. And of course, everything is on the table except for religion, politics, climate change, and whether the A-10 is relevant in modern warfare. But still, Matthew, I understand that we have one last poll to talk about before we get into all those questions. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the last poll says Belgium reports unknown drones flying near Brussels airport and they closed their entire airspace over that. And what are your thoughts? 42% said it's meant to test the responses of NATO countries, while 27% said it's meant to disrupt airspace, and 24% said it's meant to gather intelligence. And I'm pretty confident at this point that it's not really about necessarily testing responses. These drone sightings that keep happening over NATO countries, especially, for example, Germany, Belgium, etc., they're mainly just to disrupt the airspace. Because notice, they're happening mainly around airports. And it's commercial airports where people are flying in and out of to go and get transit to other countries. So I think the sole reason is to cause hell and havoc. And it's probably simply to disrupt. And that's also what we're seeing inside of the other countries near the Baltic as well. We're seeing Belarus send over balloons, which are allegedly smuggling balloons, but they're probably not that. They're more about disrupting the airspace around Vilnius and the airports in those countries. So I think it's disrupting. I'm on the 27%. And Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with the 42% as well. I think it's meant to test responses because they're not causing any damage. They're just causing disruptions, which is financial damage. So a damage in a sense, but nothing direct or physical. So I would generally say that they're testing responses as well. And so I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. And with that, let's get on into them questions, Matthew. What do we got?
All right, so our first super chat question goes to Pretzel's Garage, who puts in a $50 support, and thank you very much, Pretzel, for that $50 support right there. It's very generous of you, and we do appreciate that. He said, I saw your search bar, a rivet counter scale train's recent search, and what scale do you model and or plans on a layout at the new house, and love the streams.
Oh, that's a great question. So I model in HO scale. I think HO scale is God scale, because it is the one that is big. Well, it's not big. It's like perfectly sized. It's mid-sized, so you get all the details, you get all of the sound, so you get the DCC and sound and all. And also the models look good. And also they don't have that third rail that O-Gauge has. So I think HO scale is the perfect scale. In scale is a little too small for me. Not dissing on anyone who does in scale, but I will diss on O-Gauge because I just don't get it. I just don't get a O-Gauge. Like, look at anything in O-Gauge and it always looks wrong. Like, it never looks like it was made right. You know what I mean? Like, and also the whole third rail thing that comes with O-Gauge. Let me show you what I mean here. Let's see here. Where the hell is it? Oh, yeah, right there. You see, that just looks wrong. Like, I cannot get past that. So I will never touch O-Gauge. It's HO for me. And also, like, not to give a shout out or anything, I'll make this a little bit brief, but this is probably my favorite model train company out there, because I just think their quality is great. And also, I had a couple of others, like I had some Aethierns and some Bachmans and some others, and they were good. Like, they're good, but I just feel like Scale Trains always hits the mark every single time on all of the ones that I've gotten, and I like the kind of detail that they get into, and also they include a lot of history about the units that they model, and they're number specific and that whole deal. So, I mean, it's really cool. I think they're neat. And they're also coming out with a tag, which is a huge favorite of mine. I want to get one of these. But they're really cool. So I do HO, and HO is the most popular, and I got big plans. Because I can't really get into a lot of detail about my place because of the operational security side of things, so I can't really say what I have, but I do have room. I can't say that. I do have room for a model train layout, and I'm hoping to get to making one eventually. I'm probably going to start small and then work it on out to be a bigger layout. But one thing I was thinking, I'll probably do something generic looking to where part of it kind of looks like Alabama. Another part of it might look like somewhere else that's really pretty and scenic, like the Rockies. In general, kind of like a mountainous pass area, and then maybe do something like Salt Lake, an area that's inspired by the Salt Lake area. That would be cool looking to me. So I think I might work on that here in the near future and try and make that happen, because I think that would be pretty cool. But I do thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep it running, and I hope that does address that well. And also, one other thing. One thing that I really like Scale Trains for is that my favorite modern railroad is the Norfolk Southern. And right now, Scale Trains is the only one who does AC-44 C6Ms, which is generally special to the Norfolk Southern. Really, nobody else uses them. And if they do, they're in very small numbers. Like the BNSF, I think, has 12. And then I think Ferromex has like 6. They're very small amounts. Norfolk Southern has like 900 of these. So it's an unlimited number. And I love this one. I actually have this one. It's 4047. I call it the Oreo because the front part is primer and the back part is the normal company colors. And just to give you like a really quick little story about that, back when this one was put into service, Norfolk Southern was in a really big rush to get these back on the railroad because they needed power to move their trains with. They needed raw horsepower, and the horsepower was being held up by having these things in the factory. So they called up Wabtec, which is Westinghouse Air Brake Technologies, and that's the company that was doing the rebuilds, and they called them up and told them, look, just rebuild the thing, don't paint it, and just send it back to us immediately. We need it right now. So what Wabtec did is that they ripped off the whole front of the engine, which is what they do with all of them, and they replaced it. But instead of painting anything, they just kept it in the primer paint job that it had when they smacked this thing on, and they just sent it straight back to Norfolk Southern. And so for years, 4047 went around looking like this. And Norfolk Southern was really special in doing that because it was the only railroad in modern history so far that I know of that did this. So it was a really unique sort of a little part of like industrial history and modern American railroading, is that a good amount of Norfolk Southern engines, I think it was like a couple of dozen of them, ended up looking like this for a couple of years before they all got painted solid black to look like this right here, which is what 4047 would look like right now. So anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, I know that someone here is watching who used to work for the Norfolk Southern, and a big shout out to him. He got my interest in Norfolk Southern peaked because before that, I was generally more of a CSX fan. But now I'm a Norfolk Southern fan because of that fella. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, at least in my opinion, about the whole Norfolk Southern and the model railroading and all that stuff. And a huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running and making this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Pooker1228, who's, of course, a longtime channel legend. And thank you very much, Pooker, for that $50 support that you just threw in. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And also, by the way, I was trying to get a look here because they have a motorcycle in their profile picture. So I was trying to get to their page, but it's not letting me go to their page. I don't know why. So let me scroll back up here as I got to see it. It looks like a Ducati, but dang, it won't let me go back to it. Like, that's a terrible feature. It won't let me click on their page, but that looks like a Ducati Panigale right there. That's pretty nice though. But Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta say, I like that motorcycle. That's actually a really nice looking one. And I'd have to say, I do thank you massively for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but that motorcycle speaks volumes, and we thank you greatly for that, because Matthew is a motorhead. He loves motorcycles. He also likes trains from time to time, but not as much as everything else. He likes cars and motorcycles a great deal more. Hell, he even likes 18-wheelers a great deal more. Well, I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, 18-wheelers are pretty cool. But beyond that, I do thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it rolling. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Margaret Hemsley, also another longtime channel legend, who puts in a $31 support all the way from Australia. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support. She said, welcome to your new home. And please check out the Kalgoorlie Railway Museum. It's not big, but it's a significant part of the history of Washington and the goldfields.
The Kalgoorlie... Let's see. Is that in Australia?
I think it's Washington.
Let's see. How do you spell it?
Kalgoorlie. Gorlami. It's Kalgoorlie. Gorlami.
Are you sure that's not Western Australia?
They said history of WA, so I was assuming Washington.
Oh, it's Western Australia. That's Western Australia. Because there is no Kalgoorlie in Washington State, but there is a Kalgoorlie in WA, Western Australia. So that must be where this is. So let's see if we can find it, and I'm sure it's somewhere around the rails. So I'm sure we can find this here in a minute. Oh, where in the world is it right now? Where is it right now? Where in the world is it? Come on. I'm gonna have to type this thing in. Let's see. Railway Museum. Quality in Railway Motel Function Center. And what else is around here? Signpost. Museum of the Goldfields. Is that what it is?
Yeah, they said the significant part of the history of Western Australia and the goldfields.
Interesting. Let's take a little look. Ah, yes. That's what the boomers used to ride to school. Uphill both ways. They're right there, man. It's right there.
They said sticks and stones may break my bones, but sticks will help me get to school.
Man, they said sticks and stones may break my bones, but yeah, I gotta go. Man, that's what they said. They said I gotta leave.
They got that Flintstones lumber special on that bike.
Man, they go rolling down the road, and when they turn on the horn, it's some bird, and it goes, man, boy, I'm sure tired of this job.
Oh man, I'm so tired of being used as a honker.
Oh man, oh dude, there's so many jokes I can make, and I can't make them. And I can't, dude. But still, this is a really interesting museum. And British arms. But where's the British legs? Oh, get it? Because British people don't tan. We don't either. We're actually mostly British, and we don't tan either, sadly. I'm pale as a ghost all the time. Doesn't matter how much I get out in the sun. Let's see, and there was another museum down here, just to make sure we hit the Boulder Railway Station. Ah, yes. The Boulder Railway Station. Not many pictures here. And they do have some old abandoned rail cars out there, but they look like they're worse for wear these days. But still, I do thank you massively for support and sharing that with us, and a very interesting part of Western Australian railroading history. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible and keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't have been able to be here for years, and we wouldn't be able to still be here tonight. So humongous thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to John Combest. And John puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, John, for always being here for a very long time as well, and also helping to keep the channel running. And he said, Enforcer and Matt, how was your voice and health, boys? Honestly, my voice is doing okay. A little slight scratchy because of the dry air out here, I think. And also, generally speaking, my health's doing pretty good too. So I'll be honest with you, the move, very stressful. It was very stressful the entire time. And also the days leading up to it was very stressful too. So I'm still trying trying to unwind from it. I'm still kind of in like go mode, I guess you could say, from that whole thing, and my mind is not settled from it. So still trying to get back into routine, and it's going to take a minute. But thank you very much, John. And Enforcer, what say you?
Thank you very much for the question as well, John. And my voice is doing kind of okay, and it's on the mend, so hopefully you'll be doing better here in the future. And also, as far as my health, well, I couldn't have gotten sicker. I got hit with 3 things. One, which is an undisclosed medical condition which cannot be disclosed for operational security purposes. 2, I was then hit with altitude sickness. And 3, I was then hit with like the flu or something, all at the same time. So the first 2 conditions made me extremely lightheaded and dizzy. That's the altitude sickness and the unnamed one. Those made me extremely lightheaded and dizzy, and they added on to each other and practically turned into a double whammy. And then the whole sickness deal, that just made me like cough really badly, and also made me so sick that I really couldn't do much of anything rather than lay down and sound like I'm dying, where I was like, I'm dying. And then, you know, I would go to sleep for like 20 hours and wake up. So that was not really that good. That happened literally right after we got here. We got here, and that part of the video where y'all saw, we had to take the train. It literally happened like right after that. Like right when we got back to the hotel that night, I was like, Matthew, I'm not really feeling so well. And then the next day I was like, oh, I'm sick. I was like, I'm so sick. I was like, I got something really bad. It's terrible. And then that's pretty much been everything since then. Basically, that's my whole life in a nutshell since that point. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And I hope that does address that question well. But hopefully, things will continue to improve, because things can only get better from here. Or they won't, and who cares? But anyways, a big thanks to you once again. And a huge thanks to you for helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Critical Mass 8201, and thank you very much, Critical Mass, for that support. And also, I know who you are, by the way, but for some, because YouTube changed the names up, they're not putting your normal username there. So I'm trying my damnedest to like remember the normal username right there, but I know who you are. But just to make that clear, but they put in a $50 support, and thank you very much for that very very generous support once again. And they said, "Welcome to Utah, and let's go on a road trip to Zion's National Park, my treat, and check out Red Iguana or Log Haven. Miss my Marifatties, and grab a chat and all glory for the Cult of Matt." And I tell you, thank you very much for repping the Cult of Matt right there. Honestly, I'd like to see that national park. I'm not sure when we'll ever have the time to go do that, because I'll be honest, we're still swamped busy, but I would like to see it. But Enforcer, what say you?
Red Iguana. Oh, it's a restaurant. I thought it was like a hotel, but let's take a look. Red Iguana. Killer Mexican food. Honestly, it looks like it would be straight up bussin' from a place like this. Like, that's what Oh.
What is that?
You don't know what that is?
It's pate.
I don't know what that is either, actually. Like, man, I thought you were gonna be like, I don't know. And I was going, I don't know either. It looks really good though. Like, I would love to eat at a place like this. I'm gonna eat at a place like this. I'm not saying that like one day I will. I'm gonna eat at this place. Oh, and the desserts look good, man. I was hoping to lose weight, folks, once I got here. As y'all can tell, I'm not exactly the healthiest person. But man, it's gonna be tough. Like, the food around here is really, really good. Like, it's even better than Alabama, which, you know, I don't know why I'm saying that like Alabama's like the standard, but it's better than Alabama. And I mean, look at that, Matthew. They even give you the sauces like a palette of paint. I mean, that's crazy right there. Truly.
You gotta love the sauce. You gotta have a little sauce, but you gotta remember not to get lost in the sauce. You know, you gotta make sure that you control the sauce and not the sauce controlling you. You know, that sort of thing.
Man, that's deep. And also, let's see. There was one other place that we needed to look at. There was the Log Haven. Log Haven. Let's take a gander. Where's that? This place right here. Well. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, there it is. Oh, this place looks like the menu. Look at this place, looks like the menu. That looks like a great steak, though, doesn't it, Matthew?
I'll be honest, I don't like them that raw. I mean,
but
that
you had
color also.
But you had the one
Huh?
in that one restaurant that one time like that, and you said it was good.
I didn't have it like that. That's like rare right here. That's like really rare.
Man, shoot. You know, there was actually a place, though, all jokes aside, that I drove by on Interstate 80, and it was on a turn. Was it here? No, it wasn't here. No, it wasn't here. Let's see. Was it here? No, it wasn't there. Okay, hang on, hold up. There's a place. There's a place here, folks. I'm not going crazy. But there was a place here, and I've got to find it because it was a cool looking spot, and I was like, wow, that looks neat, and I wanna go to it one day. And now we're down here. Was it further up? Was it further up? It was somewhere right on the interstate. And I was like, how the hell do you get to that? And then I just like completely forgot where it was, and now I'm trying to find it here on the air. Dang, come on, y'all. Come on, we gotta find this thing for all y'all. It was a cool looking spot, and I saw it on the interstate. It was right off the interstate. How in the world? I think it was like right here, because it was somewhere like right there. Was it this place? It was like kind of like near there, and I don't see anywhere else. So I'm guessing that was it. That's weird. Where in the world did I see that freaking place? We were driving down the mountains. We were driving down them on Interstate 80, and I saw it. I bet you saw it, Matthew. It was like a little restaurant thing, and it was off to the right. Like, you know, going on Interstate 80 west, it was off to the right on kind of like a turn. And we were going downhill, and we went into like a mountainous pass. It was a very steep area surrounded by mountains, and I saw the little breakfast place, or whatever it was, and I was like, wow, that looks like really good food, and I want to try that one day. Is it this?
Mm-hmm.
No, you know what? I'm going to give up on it, folks, because we got a lot of questions to answer, and we're already running overtime. But I'm going to have to find that thing after I get off air. What about this place, though? Oh, now that is breakfast. Oh, look at that.
That looks like some food right there.
Whoa, French toast. Oh, sausage and country fried steaks. Dude, that's killer. That's killer. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address it well. Big thanks to you once again for the support, and I hope that does address that well. And one day we will try and take a look at Zion's National Park. And with that, we will make sure to grab one from the chat. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, so the one from the chat is going to go to Long Beach, who said, what is the Venezuela operation and war really about?
I'll be honest with you, it's really hard to say. I would say that the best justification for it would be to curb Chinese influence in the area, but it appears that the current presidency is saying that it's to fight the cartels, which I don't really think makes a lot of sense and is really practical. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running, sponsoring a live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a question from Waba, and Waba puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, good sir, for the support once again. He said, victory is near.
And victory is near. Victory is always near. It's a eternal victory, I'd say. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep running. So that way we can continue to cover the news for when the victory finally comes. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to Philip Lanebull for putting in a 20, and also Kevin Hansen for also throwing in a $20 support. And a huge shout out to you, Kevin and Philip, for helping to make the channel possible as well. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank the world of y'all greatly. Y'all are helping us to keep this thing running, keep it rolling, and make it possible. And we're greatly appreciative of that, each and every one of you. And I gotta thank y'all greatly for y'all's support. And so a big thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we do have a $20 support from Thomas D. Orazio. And thank you very much, Thomas, for that 20. He said, I bet there's some great train stories in your future in your Utah adventure, and I can't wait to hear those stories. And railroads tell a big part of the history of the western United States.
Oh, they really do. Like, they actually really, really do. Every single city out here was or is still currently a major railroading hub, which is kind of funny because the whole way that we were driving through Wyoming, really the whole way we were driving through the West, every city I'd be like, oh, wow, Kearney, big stop on the UP. Like, you can see it right there. Look, there's the UP yard in Kearney right there. And then, you know, we would drive past, let's see, North Platte, And it's like, oh, North Platte, biggest rail yard in the world, Guinness World Record holder. Wow, so cool, magical. And then we never got to see it, which was a shame. And then we drive through Cheyenne. I'd be like, wow, Cheyenne, the beginning of the Sherman Hill. And then we drive through the Sherman Hill. And then I'd be like, wow, Laramie, the end of the Sherman Hill. And then we drive further, and we made it to, let's see here, where do we make it to? We made it, Rollins, where's Rollins? Oh, here's Rollins. And I'd be like, Rollins, another big point on the UP. And then we just kept going, and every single town was like a major railroading town, which was really cool. And there was a couple of these, actually a lot of them, that have gone through on Train Simulator, like Green River. I've driven through there on Train Simulator. And Cheyenne and Laramie, I've driven through there too. And then everything from Evanston all the way down to Ogden, I've run on the Wasatch Grade on Train Sim Classic. So we were driving through all these places, and I was looking around, I was like, wow, oh my god, I've driven a train over that. That's so cool. You know, it's like, that's really neat to see that in real life. Because they never model anything in Alabama, so, you know, you just go around there, and it's like, oh, these are the rails, and you have to really crack open the books and really read about them and think about what it's probably like for people to run trains over that kind of territory and those roads. But out here, because the grades and the routes are so famous, you know, there's multiple routes on Train Simulator and stuff you can play of them. So you actually get to drive them and see them and look at them and kind of get a little bit of a feel for them in a way, you know, at least with how they look. And then when you drive through the area, it looks just like it. It's like, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, the railroading stories are going to be pretty wild out of here, I'm sure. But the sad thing is that they don't have anything in Salt Lake City rather than the Union Pacific. So the only time you'll see anything different than that will be foreign power, and that's it. Because there's no other railroad that comes through here rather than the Union Pacific. Let's see. U.S. Railroad Map. U.S. Railroad Map. I'll show that because a lot of cities like Birmingham, they actually have pretty much all the railroads come together, which is a really good thing for the rail fanning side of deals. But for Salt Lake, not the case. Let me see here. Where's the Wikipedia one? They have one on Wikipedia. That's I don't know what that is. Let's see. Ah, here we are. See right here, Union Pacific in red. What is the railroad of Utah? The Union Pacific, that's it. No BNSF, no CSX, no Norfolk Southern. It is just the Union Pacific. So that's all you'll see. Foreign power can come through, and it will come through, but it's going to be a little bit more far in between.
Also, by the way, it said U.S. railroad lines by ownership.
Look, man, the railroad, look, man, they run trains for a living, okay? They don't write. They don't. It says U.S. railroad lines by ownership. Excuse me, mister. I'm the owner of this damn railroad. Man, like, get the hell off my property, boy. I'm the ownership of this damn thing. Man, it's like... Honestly, goodness. Also, man, I like how everyone just on Mississippi. Look at Mississippi, dude, and everyone in Mississippi went nope, and just doesn't own anything there. Every single railroad in Mississippi's owned by like some third line railroad or something like that.
Yeah, that's wild.
Man, ain't nobody want to touch Mississippi, man. Literally, the Union Pacific went around it. The BNSF just kind of skirts through the north of it just to get to Birmingham. And Norfolk Southern just goes through there to get to New Orleans. Nobody else wants to touch Mississippi in any damn way. They're like, I'm good. We'll just avoid that. But anyways, I hope that does address that well, at least by the ownership. And with that, we are on to the next one. But huge thanks to you once again for the support.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Steve, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Steve, for that $20 support. He said, about the Oreshnik failures, are you saying that Vladimir can't get it up?
Yes, that is exactly what we're saying. That is actually what we're saying. And so, a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And, of course, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Chalk, who put in that 20 and said, a live chat question, please. And we shall grab a live chat question. And thank you very much, Chalk, for that $20 support. And the live chat question is going to go to none other than Canada is Sovereign, who said, is the Guantanamo base large enough to set up an anti-missile weapon system to take out threats before they reach the mainland?
Technically, yeah, you could actually set up an Aegis Ashore here if you wanted to. The problem is constructing it, which would be prohibitively expensive, most likely, because of its isolated location, and also having to bring in the proper sorts of people to construct it and everything. That's why Guantanamo really doesn't get a lot of additions, or at least really big and expensive ones. But you could. It's not out of the realm of possibility. There is enough real estate here. So I hope that does address that well. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and keep it rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 20 from Char G, and he puts in that $20 support. We do appreciate you very much, Char G, for that support. He said, hey there, boys. And it's formerly Char G, now Ride for Life. And did they even have In-N-Out in Salt Lake City? And I hope so. And yum. And they do. They have In-N-Outs all over the place out here, actually. So I haven't had the chance to eat there, like, believe it or not. I've been dying to get it, but I haven't had the chance to go eat there since I've been out here and we moved here. So, well, I'll have to make time for that. I do like some good burgers from In-N-Out. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd have to say that, yes, In-N-Outs are here. And I've had an In-N-Out here in Salt Lake City before on another trip that actually found this townhouse. And so, huh?
I said, ah.
Oh, but beyond that, I have to say, yes, they're here and they're good. And so a big thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, folks, I just realized something. The same road trip length that we took from Birmingham, Alabama to Salt Lake City, which is about 1,850 miles, if you went 1,850 miles in a straight line in China, you'd be arrested and turned around and deported from the country, probably.
You think so?
Yeah, because you'd literally end up near, one of the enrichment areas, where they have everyone in the, in the little, how in the world do I say it? Like, how in the world do I say it, Matthew, without saying it?
Don't say it.
Well, how do I say it without saying it, Matthew? We got to think here. We got to think.
The land where atrocities occur.
Well, that's really saying it more so in the nose than what I was planning on saying. Like, I was just going to say, the little hangout spots, like where everyone just goes and hangs out permanently. But yeah, that's actually crazy, Matthew. If we took that same length of a road trip through China, we'd literally make it all the way, almost to Western China.
Yeah, that's true.
That's wild, man. Really crazy. But anyways, with that, folks, we're on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Steen 8819. And thank you very much, Steen, for that $20 support. He said, I mentioned above, if you take a break and want an awesome tour of the Bailey Yards in North Platte, let me know. And also for some cool day and night train photos.
And I thank you so much for the support. And I'm always a huge sucker for nighttime train photos. I love nighttime train photos. I think those are some of the coolest looking. Daytime, ones are great. I'll take them all. I think they're really nice. But North Platte, I wish we had some time on our road trip, because I would have loved to have seen the North Platte yard. I mean, this thing is truly unbelievably large, because Matthew thought, and I also thought this as well, that the Norris Yard, which is where we would go and railfan all the time here in Birmingham, so, shout out to anyone who's from around Irondale and the Norris Yard. We were there practically all the time towards the end of when we were there, but this is its hump, which is a 53-track wide hump, which is pretty big. It's actually the biggest one in the southeast, but we thought this was big. This is only, I think, about a third of the size of the yard in North Platte, which is 2 humps. I think each one is about 70-something tracks across, and they also have an endless amount of, I think, train building tracks, marshalling tracks, and everything else in between. I mean, it is truly an unbelievable sort of a logistics structure that they have here. They actually handle, through this one yard, folks, 10,000 rail cars a day. And 3,000 of them are sorted in the humps down here. And some of y'all are like, why are they called humps? They're called humps because they have little hills, And the hills are right here. This is the west hump, and this is the east hump. And so what they do is that they take all the rail cars and they push them up this little hill. It's a tiny, tiny little hill. But when they make it to the top of the hill, they uncouple each car, or several cars at a time, and gravity rolls them down the other side of the hill. And they use a series of computers that are inside of a air traffic control looking tower around here somewhere. And those little computers flip all the switches to get that car to roll onto the right track in these humps, and they smack into the other cars, and it pretty much allows you to build a train the easy way. That's what's kind of cool about these hump yards. Really neat, actually. So, one day I might be out there in North Platte, and I might take you up on that offer, because I personally would love to see the thing. It's really cool. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that does address that incredibly well, because I'm always fascinated with trains. I love trains. And so with that, a big thanks to you once again. And we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Blind Man, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support once again. And he said, hello there, and LOC. And for a refresher, and those new to the channel, do you mind explaining the rebel-controlled line on your map and what it implies that Ukraine should Ukraine get past it? And if I remember, isn't it partisan resistance?
Actually, that was removed because now we are understanding that partisan-controlled activities or partisan activities are actually happening everywhere. So their zone of control has pretty much moved everywhere behind the lines, and there's endless partisan activity going on back there. So generally, that's why it's been removed, as a matter of fact, and is no longer there. But I do thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I actually hope that addresses a map change that probably was never mentioned and went completely unnoticed because it was never mentioned, is that the partisan-controlled area was removed because we now understand that there are partisans swarming everywhere back there. So with that, a big thanks to you once again for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who's, of course, a longtime channel legend who throws in a $12 support. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support right there. We do appreciate that. And also, let me double check something real quick here. Let's see. AMX10, I think you threw in a 20, actually. And you threw in a 12 and a 20, actually. So a huge shout to you, AMX10, for that $20 support. I was trying to make sure I got that one earlier because I don't think I got that. I think, okay, it was coming up next. There we go. I was getting mixed up there. But AMX10 said live chat question. And also, you threw in a 12 as well, in addition to that 20. So thank you very much, AMX10, for the 2 super chats. And the live chat question in honor of AMX10 is going to go to the original, who said, if Russia is having a hard time with manpower and weapons, how can they help anyone else?
Generally, they can if they screw themselves over in a long-term sense. They can, but that really is more so of like a desperate last-ditch foreign policy play than anything. So while they really can't, in at least in reason, they can in reality. That's probably the best way to explain it. It's kind of like saying you're broke and rent's coming up and rent's $900 and you only have $400 left, and your friend just got a blown tire and it's going to be $200 to replace it, and so you decide to give him $200. In reality, you can't give him $200 because you're already in debt pretty much, because you're still $500 in the hole for next month's rent. But in reality, if you wanted to make a stupid decision, you could still give your friend $200 to go replace the tire with. So that's kind of the same situation with the Russians providing weapons with Venezuela. They don't have the weapons to really give if, we're talking about them trying to actually survive the war with Ukraine and have enough weapons to do it with, but they can still do it anyways, which is a pretty stupid decision for them. So I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. And a big thanks to you for the support and also asking a really good question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to David STG, who puts in the 10. And he said, tonight we need to show the boys some love and LOC. And thank you very much, David, for that support, by the way. We do appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
Hey, thank you so much for the support. And helping this channel to keep running. And I gotta say, thank you greatly for wanting the channel to show us some love. We're showing love every single night. We're always greatly appreciative of it. And I got to thank you so much for the kind words and wishing us the best. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10 from Christian Noriega. And he puts in that 10. And thank you very much, Christian, for that support. He said Russia is going to get worn down with the war with Ukraine. And China trying to take back land from China. And China's playing the long game.
Possibly. It's possible. We'll have to wait and see. But China generally usually plays the long game. That's generally how they like to plan things out and do it. And so a big, huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat here is going to go to none other than Cerebrez, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much as well, Cerebrez, for that support. They said, welcome to Salt Lake City. And here's some money for Enforcer Matt to get a Crown Burger, a pastrami burger. And honestly, thank you. I've never had Crown Burger. I'd be curious to have it. And a pastrami burger sounds very good right now, I must admit. It sounds very, very tasty to me, honestly. I would love to have some of that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I got to thank you so much for the support, and I got to thank you for wanting us to have a pastrami boiga from Crown Burger. That sounds great. And I got to thank you incredibly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. So humongous thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have another 10 from Christian. And he said, can an EMP deactivate a nuclear missile or a warhead in motion? Or you need the A code number to deactivate?
Actually, once a weapon is launched like that and it's in air, there's pretty much no way to deactivate the thing. The activation sequence is actually mechanical, not digital, and so it would be impossible to stop it from activating. And there's also really no way to transmit a code to make it deactivate. Once it's launched, it's assumed that it would never be recalled or canceled, so it's just going to activate and blow up whenever it hits something. At least that's how I've understood it. And how I researched it. I might be incorrect on that, so if I am wrong, someone can correct me on that, but that's generally how I understand it. But a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've also got a 10 from Space Fraggle. And he said, I'm honored to be a part of the LSA and keep up the great work, guys.
Hey, and we're happy to have you as a part of the LSA, and we will make sure to keep up the great work just for you. And so a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that us addressed that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Iman1120. And he said the LES oil fired U.S. supercarrier was the USS Kitty Hawk and was decommissioned in 2009. And technically, but LHAs like the USS America are larger and more powerful than most other countries' carriers.
Look at that. The Kitty Hawk. Squaw! It was a beautiful carrier. Honestly, it wasn't really the prettiest looking, but it was a carrier, and it was a pretty large one, at least, from what I remember. Yeah, it could carry 40 Super Hornets. Actually, it could carry 85 aircraft. I mean, that's a lot of aircraft right there. This thing was 1,070 feet long. Dang, that's crazy, honestly. But beyond that, I gotta say thank you for sharing that. But still, it does stand that there are no oil-fired aircraft carriers in the Navy currently. I was very wrong on that, though. This was actually retired in 2009, so we actually had one in service up until very recently. But still, a massive thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And with that, it is time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Napier, who puts in a 10. And they said, if you don't take care of your backyard, we will be screwed. And he said, I did military intel for years, and you guys need to think twice.
Well, I mean, didn't I say that earlier in the stream? I mean, I don't know if you threw that in before I said that, or if you weren't paying attention, one or the other. But, you know, I said it's not a good idea to, you know, poke your finger at something and then start a fire, but now that the fire started, we got to put it out, kind of a deal. Said that generally earlier, so you're kind of preaching to the choir here, but I do thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, I was about to go into the next one.
I saw someone in the chat say something here. And I got to say, folks, I'm not going to get into politics on this one, but this is something that has annoyed me. There's a lot of people who've come in through the night. I've seen 3 so far in the question segment who were talking about the whole New York City election thing. I'm just going to say this, folks. Whoever wins an election wins an election. If someone wins, the whole damn thing hasn't fallen apart. That's a really stupid thing to say. If you don't like the guy, you don't like him. A lot of people didn't like the current president when he got elected, but guess what? He got elected and he's the president of the United States. The whole country isn't doomed, and a whole city isn't doomed because some guy got elected. I mean, people have got to stop with this stuff. And then people will also sit there on the one hand and say that it's wrong, like this is what people were saying. It's wrong for the Democrats to try and steal the election from Trump. That's what people were saying. It's going to be fair here in a second. But then on the same flip side, people are also going to say that this Zohran guy can't be the mayor of New York, and they're going to stop him from doing that. Both of those are the same thing. Whoever wins the election wins the election. If you don't like him, that's just unfortunate. But they won fair and square, so it is what it is. You know, like I don't really know why a lot of people keep on making that into an issue, but the entire country is built on the democratic principle of, you know, the best man wins, and whoever wins the most votes is the best man. That's just the end of the story. They win, you know, whether you like him or not. So with that, I hope that addresses that well. Not getting political there, but just laying the score even. I don't really know why in the world a lot of people keep on looking at that however the hell you want. And if you don't like them, well, you know, maybe you might end up being right. Maybe they're a bad president, maybe they're a bad mayor, and, you know, then people might agree with you in a couple of years when the election comes around again and they'll vote them out. That's how it's supposed to work. But anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Robert Krogan, who puts in a 5. And he did throw in the first super chat of the night, by the way. He said, I'll open it up tonight in LLC.
And I gotta thank you for the support, and thank you for opening up. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you for once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to GhostyFace75, who puts in a 5, and he said Russia would throw a fit if we gave Ukraine these types of weapons.
And I gotta say, they would, and I think that's what the Russians are trying to do is make us step back and go, oh, okay, we won't give them Tomahawks as long as you don't give them Oreshniks. I think that's what they're trying to do. But the problem is that we can actually shoot down an Oreshnik. They really can't shoot down a Tomahawk because they can't even shoot down a pretty much a hobbyist drone at this point. So with that, a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we have a 5 from Laser314, and they said daylight saving time is in the summer and winter is real time.
And I gotta say, I honestly wish that it just stayed daylight savings time then, because I just like that time more so than the winter time, to be entirely honest with you, with how the clock works. Really, I just wish that it would just stay one way. I don't really care which way. It would just stay one way, so that way it was universal the whole time. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 10-pound donation from Butchie777, and thank you very much, Butchie, for that 10-pound support. And they put in a super sticker right there. It's the YouTube creature sitting in an office chair, and it busted. It must have been from China. And it says wrecked. And honestly, that YouTube creature does look wrecked. Honestly, that must have been a hard fall right there. That thing, like, it's got its tongue out and everything. That thing might be finished. Look at that. I'll tell you what, make sure you buy good office chairs, folks. You want to end up finished. But thank you very much, Butchie, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
I think that thing needs to go to the hospital, like right now. I think that thing's got like a severe traumatic brain injury or something like that from that fall.
Nah, he can't go to the hospital. His health insurance has got 3 times more expensive. He had to skip.
Oh, yeah, I forgot the health insurance. I forgot, folks. It just went up, and it's really expensive now. But beyond that, I do thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Butchie777. And I hate to see that thing's going to have to go to the hospital, because not even insurance can help it anymore, because the insurance is as expensive as being uninsured. But a huge thanks to you once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Valen, who puts in the 5. He said, glad you're sounding better, and love to see the domestic political nonsense stamped out from the channel. LSA, and take on from the chat.
And I thank you so much for the support, and we try the best we can. I find domestic political people I just got to be completely honest, folks. I find domestic political people who like live, breathe, and eat that stuff incredibly annoying. They don't think with brains, and I know that the Lee Spring Army is a lot smarter than that. I just cannot stand them. I really can't stand any of them because you sit there and you get the same ignorant stuff from both ends, and you just don't realize it until you take a step back and you just completely remove yourself from being affiliated with either group, and then you listen to both of them, and then you use actual reasoning and sense, and then you go, wait a minute, none of these people make any sense. Why in the world would I agree with any of them? Why in the world would I ever even argue or fight for any of the points they're making? None of them make sense. And then you just never want to be a part of it again after that. The only time I'd ever be a part of it is when I'm trying to run for president, and even still, I couldn't be a part of it that much to where I sit there and pick up whatever stupid party lines people were going with those days and just run with them even if they don't make any sense. So I probably would lose the election for that reason. But beyond that, I do thank you greatly for the support and enjoying that we keep politics out of this thing because, you know, like I was saying a second ago, an election's an election and whoever wins, wins. They're the best man apparently for the job according to the public, and that's what it is. That's how democracy works. And I see, you know, and people, because the New York City election happened tonight, a lot of people are upset about that. A lot of people were upset about the presidential election from 2024, and a lot of people were upset with the presidential election from 2020. But guess what, folks? Them's the breaks. Those people won. That's what it is. If you don't like them, that's unfortunate, but they're going to be there for the next 4 years until the next election comes around. And there's not a lot, well, there's nothing anyone can do about it. There's nothing anyone can do about it. So, you know, just sit it out. It won't be too bad. Like, it's never too bad. People overblow it. They act like the whole country's going to die because some guy was elected. Or the city's going to die because some guy's elected. Just give it another 4 years and then vote someone else in. It might get marginally worse. Or it might seem a little chaotic, but it'll all come out in the wash. But anyways, a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, actually, as a matter of fact, we are going to keep talking about this. Because,
I said, oh?
Yeah, we're going to, you're good with me keeping talking about this, right? Wink, wink, you know what I mean?
No, I'm good. I'm back.
Oh, dang, bro. Okay, I wasn't sure if you were back or not. I was like, oh crap. I was like, wait a minute, I don't think he's back yet. But because I thought it was a message for another thing. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best I can. But I like to think, folks, that I just approach things neutrally around here. You know, like the point I'm saying, like earlier, that's something you can apply to anything. You can apply it to the president. Look, he won. It is what it is. You could apply that to 2024 or 2020. You can apply that to the mayoral election in New York City tonight. And also, I got to say this, folks. I don't know why in the world, like I would get it when people are very unhappy about the presidential election outcome. Well, not really very unhappy, but like kind of like unhappy with it a little bit, where they're like, I don't like that. Like, I could get that, but getting like violent over that, I don't get that. And then also on top of that, I don't get a whole bunch of people acting like the country is screwed because some guy that they didn't like won in New York City. Like, do you know how much power the mayor of a city has at all? Like, very little. I mean, like it like on a local level, it's an okay amount of power, but even still, it's not that great. I mean, like, it's not like he can change any state statutes or anything like that in the state of New York. The only thing he can do is change the city tax level, maybe some city utilities that are provided, and also some city programs that are given. I mean, it's hardly anything. I mean, it's like the mayor of New York can practically do nothing. I mean, like, really, if you look at it, all of the power in the state of New York's held in the state government and the state legislature, like any other state, and the cities are just the cities. I mean, you know, even a big one not like New York City, it still runs in the same city corporation structure that every single city in America runs as. So it's not like it's going to, you know, completely change the playing field. I don't even know why this whole thing was blown up that badly. And on top of that, it's not like let's just be honest, folks. It's not like New York City has been run well for the past 30 years anyways. So what did it matter, like, who even won at all? I mean, like, let's just be honest here for a minute. would it even have mattered? I mean, like, it's not like anyone from has been the mayor of New York City, anyone's looked to them and gone, wow, this is the greatest guy who's ever lived. He's like the greatest mayor ever. Well, and it could only get worse from here. Like, every single one of them, everyone's been going, wow, it couldn't get worse than this. So it's like, what's the difference? Like, it really didn't matter who was going to win, because honestly, I think they were all somehow going to be worse than the last guy. So, it just is what it is, just being completely straight up.
Right.
But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat's going to go to Bubby King 15, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much for that support, by the way. They said something has to give in Russia and people have limits.
Oh, well, something eventually has to give. I don't know when, but they take a lot before they ever really stand up to anything. I mean, hell, they only stood up once, and that was during the Russian Revolution. And then they got put down for the rest of the history up until now. So a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, a big shout out to the Wisdom to Know for putting in a 5. Also, Katarlson, 9070 for putting in a 5. As well as a Credilink Task Force, who threw in a 5 as well. And Plazath, who threw in a 3. And a huge shout out to all 4 of y'all for that support. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And we also have a 5 from Chris's mom, who said, I don't watch the news anymore. I just wait for the notification to tell me how to feel at 10 p.m.
Well, I thank you so much for the kind words and the support, and I hope that we make things better for you every day, hopefully, and also that the news is pretty good. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Sarebis, once again, he puts in the 5. They said $5 for the Costco chicken from the largest Costco in the world, Salt Lake, or Frontrunner rides.
Oh, thank you so much for the support. I will actually put that towards a $5 Costco chicken, because the front runner fares are so cheap. They're so cheap that you can just easily get one, and it's incredible. But still, a huge thanks to you so much for the support and the kind words and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're about to be moving on to the next one. And someone asked a great question. Randar asked, how are you supposed to avoid talking about politics when discussing war? That is a great question, because many people, they don't get how you can, but you can. And actually, it's really the only way to talk about foreign affairs and also war. Politics in the domestic sense has no impact on war or foreign policy at all. It's a completely separate track of thought, ideas, and actions. Like, for example, how in the world, like just to tie these things apart, because they're not even connected, how in the world does supporting Ukraine with weapons and guns against our adversary, the Russian Federation, have anything to do with any vogue political topic like abortion or gun control? And how in the world does it go in reverse? How in the world does abortion and gun control have anything to do with war or supporting Ukraine and fighting our adversary, the Russian Federation? How do those things have anything in common? The answer is none. Two of those topics, the abortion and gun control thing, are completely domestic matters. Like, they have nothing to do with anything outside of our borders. They have no impact on anyone rather than people living in America. On the other hand, the whole deal with supporting Ukraine, that is something entirely out of our borders. Generally, it doesn't affect anyone in America domestically. It affects America on a foreign level, and then that might end up affecting America domestically off of the economic fallout or the economic actions that are to follow because of those decisions. But those are two completely separate tracks of things. You can completely talk about foreign policy and foreign affairs and war without ever touching domestic politics. And we've done that for 3.5 years here on the channel. So that's how you do it. And that's where a lot of people get really confused and act like the two concepts, the domestic political matters and foreign policy matters, are married or connected to the hip. And the truth of the matter is, they're not even connected at all in any way. They're two completely separate matters. And the foreign policy affairs aren't even really political. There's pretty much a one-shot straight answer to everything. It's a binary input and output sort of an equation. There's not really much more to it. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least the best that we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, just a reminder, we have about 7 more super chats to go. And also, by the way, it's 11:21 Salt Lake time, but in our old time, it's almost 12:21, actually 12:22 now too. And we still need to get live chats. So our next super chat here goes to Noel P, who puts in a 5 and says, "How realistic is a peace deal at this point?"
Peace deal is practically impossible, at least at this point. It's going to take grinding the Russians down probably for another year to even get them to revisiting the idea of a peace talk at this point, I would assume. And so with that, a big thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who make this thing possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Taoist Auditor, who puts in a 5 and said, "Why don't you use UTC time for when you tell us when your next stream is coming up instead of using USA times and your channel is international?"
And I thank you for the support. The reason why we use US time zones is because about 56% of our audience is American. And so for that purpose, we like to use something that would be understandable at least to the majority. And considering that we almost have a congressional majority, which is about 66%, and it's only about 10% short of that, we like to do something that is recognizable to the large majority of the audience, which is 10 p.m. Eastern time. So I hope that does address that the best I can, because we're just trying to do something that would be the most easily recognizable to the larger majority of the audience. Because if we did UTC, we're doing something that's easily recognizable to 44% of the audience, but then it's completely unrecognizable to the other 56%. So that's why we do it with the Eastern Standard Time instead of the Universal Time thing, or UTC. I forgot what that actually stands for. But a big thanks to you once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, a Credit Link task force. They threw in a 10-pounder this time, and thank you very much, Credit Link, for that 10-pound support once again. He said, sorry I missed the super chat box last time. I wanted to know if you think that Russia is playing Venezuela as a draw from Russia and not the other way around like Putin would play it."
I would have to say, could you reread that one again, actually? No, I see it in the chat. Let me just read it. Let's see. Want to know if you think Russia's playing Venezuela and not the other way around. I mean, they could. They could be trying to play it that way to distract the United States and have us keep our weapons here to fight the Venezuelans. But I have a feeling that considering that the Russians are making this very open about what they're doing, instead of just trying to build up the Venezuelans quietly to make them a larger fish to fry, for us at least, they're trying to force this into an international stand down or an international incident between Russia and the United States, to where they can get some sort of diplomatic leverage out of it and then play those cards in a negotiation, possibly. That's what it more so seems. That's still a likelihood, what you're saying there. That's actually a pretty decent likelihood. But I think they're trying to do it more so for a diplomatic play at this point. But still, a big thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Iverson Tucker, who said piracy is the primary reason the Navy even exists.
That's true, actually. If y'all didn't know, the U.S. Navy really came into existence to defend U.S. merchants from Barber pirates, or the Barbary pirates of the Barbary states, which existed across the whole of North Africa. And throughout that period of really colonial America, early America, and also generally just the age of exploration as a whole, the Barbary pirates enslaved around 3 million Europeans and pushed them into slavery. The men were usually castrated and turned into eunuchs, or they were just killed if there was no one to buy them. And the women, they had things that happened to them that were not savory at all. So, to put it mildly. But that was a big part of why the U.S. Navy was created, was to stop U.S. sailors from continuously being, taken and captured by the Barber pirates and then sold off into slavery. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And a big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Cody Fritz. He said, "I, you all have experience driving in the snow?" I do. I've driven in the snow multiple times, actually. Usually I quite enjoy driving in the snow, but out here it looks to be maybe a little bit different because it snows a lot more out here. So it's going to be more of a thick snow than anything. It was usually a light dusting in all the ones I've driven in, but I actually don't mind it. But Enforcer, what say you?
I had to say, I've very rarely driven in the snow, but I'm sure I can get a hang of it pretty quickly. I mean, I got a hang of driving that Penske truck pretty quick. I'm sure I can get a hang of driving in the snow. But it's still a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And also, jumping right into our live chat questions and Morse code decoders. We're fresh out of super chats, by the way. So, jumping into the Morse code decoders of the night, we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Airball Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush, Kobe Siren, Brian Blairstown. They said the Morse code says, now we have to treat Venezuela like a serious situation because this isn't looking too good at all.
And ding, 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 ding. Shh. That's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly for getting that Morse code message correct. Y'all are always getting that correct in the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps, and we're always proud of y'all for being able to do that. And so, a big, impressive congrats to you so much once again for getting that correct. Truly an amazing and profound sort of a thing. So, with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well to the Lee Spring Army Signal Corps. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the live chats. And considering that we have 3 minutes before we go overtime, which is really crazy to look down at the clock and see that's only 11:27, but only 2 minutes until we go overtime now, we will be getting 3 live chat questions due to time constraints, and then we'll be rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one's going to go to AF Kaplan, who said, now that Russia is openly supporting Venezuela with weapons, could the U.S. respond by giving Tomahawks to Ukraine?
We certainly could. That would be an equal reprisal to what the Russians are doing in Venezuela right now. So I hope that does answer that question well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to none other than Canada is Sovereign, who said, what use are any of the high-tech Russian weapons or missiles to Venezuela if they've never been trained to use them? And have they gotten any such training?
They do have some training on very similar platforms. It would still require cross-training for them to be capable and competent on the new platforms, but we would have to assume that if the Russians are shipping them, because whenever we take an assumption on a analysis side of things, at least in the concept of we're about to fight these people, we always want to assume that they are going to be at their best, because then we'll be able to pretty much do anything. Because if we assume that they're stupid and incompetent, and then they actually end up not being stupid and incompetent, well, we just fooled ourselves into a slaughter of ourselves. If we always assume that they're extremely competent and capable, then we go into it having over-designed our battle plans and everything else to the point that we're absolutely running circles around them because they're usually stupid and incompetent. But based off of how we would work things analytically normally, we're going to assume that they actually have been somehow trained on these systems. So with that in mind, these systems are going to be assumed to be fully operational if they're inside of Venezuela. It doesn't change anything, actually. The ranges of these systems are fairly small, much like most other air defense systems of Venezuela. So once again, it would only require an increased number of suppression of enemy air defense operations, and at least a larger number of those sorties to be able to keep those systems suppressed while we conduct other air operations and destroy those systems and find them. But generally, it wouldn't really change the situation all too much from what we're seeing right now. So I hope that does address it the best I can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person that threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that one goes to Avari Mandabratis, who said, so they have a finite amount of air defense systems that seems minimal increases, overshadowed by losses plus current deployments, which Peter is being robbed by to pay Paul, and he means Maduro.
Yeah. Someone is getting robbed of air defense systems. I would assume it's probably the frontline troops, because if anything, any air defense perimeter is going to go last to be cannibalized, it's going to be the Putin air defense perimeter around his dachas. Then it would be the Moscow air defense perimeter, and then it would be the Kerch air defense perimeter. Decreasing in importance in that order. So if any of them have come from anywhere, I would assume that they probably came from the Kerch air defense perimeter, if any, because Moscow and Putin's dachas will be considered more important than the Kerch bridge at this point, in my opinion. If I was a Russian and I had to prioritize the three, I would put Kerch at the bottom over Moscow and Putin's houses. That's at least how I would do it, so I would think that they would be doing it that way. And so those air defense systems probably came from around the Crimean Peninsula and Kerch. So with that, I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion. That's just a wild guess at it. But we've reached the end of tonight's stream, folks, at exactly 3 hours and 30 minutes in. I've got to say, that we are entirely honored and greatly appreciative to have had so many of y'all here with us tonight, enjoying the news as we make a return back to streaming again on our normal streaming schedule. I've got to say a huge thanks to everyone who watched the Short War video that came out today. Almost 200,000 of y'all have watched it, and we're always honored to know that so many people continue to find the Enforcer channel to be their primary source of news. And we're also very happy to see that the same is said for the live streams every single night as well. We will be seeing you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world. And if there is a Short War video to be made, Enforcer Matt will be the one making that Short War video. And so with that, folks, we will see you all tomorrow at one of those times. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Hurram Slava, long live the Lee Spring Army, the Lee Spring Army will never die, and long live the Republic.
And thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And it's good to be back to our normal schedule yet again. And it's also good to see everybody in the live chat once more tonight. So we will see you tomorrow on that Short War video if there is enough news to cover midday. And I will be making that if there is one to make. But if not, if there is no Short War video, we will definitely see you all at 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow night to cover the rest of the news that's happened over the last 24 hours. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Hurram Slava, get some rest, and good night.